All right, welcome everybody. Hopefully this is going. I've got a couple of streams going simultaneously, both on this and the backup mirror channel. So far, I've been successfully keeping my main channel online. So, because my StreamYard software, I couldn't multicast for a while, mostly because of budgetary limitations. Um, I stopped simulcasting to the backup mirror channel. So, but yeah, I was able to do it a couple of times now because they worked on some deal now where you get more features and it's a really low price. So sorry, I'm not trying to advertise or anything, but I had a couple of bad experiences with another one, so that's kind of what's been my problem. I can't really afford to make a lot of mistakes with the streaming software that I make at the moment. So sorry about that, guys. I don't want this to be part of my permanent stream later on. I just don't like paying like $40 a month for software that doesn't work. But luckily, StreamYard's been pretty consistent, so no worries. And anyways, shoot, and if only I'd gotten some endorsement money just now. Shoot. I haven't, to be honest with you, but I will say that at least it works consistently, which I can't say for some of the other ones I've used. But anyways, I digress. Tonight is about America's jurisdictional nightmare. Let's get right into it, okay? I don't want to spend a lot of time dilly-dallying or whatever. By now, I think if you're a member of the audience here, welcome there. Appreciate you joining. If you've been a regular member of this audience or seen my streams pretty regularly, you'll know that a common topic for me is just the discussion of more sophisticated telecommunication route hacks, things that involve backdoors of internet protocol routes, backdoors of phone networks, things of that nature. So, and I got to do something really quick just to make sure that it's known that I'm streaming. I have to do this. Just helps do some validations for all right, for the way I kind of do my full metal disclosure things. All right, but thank you for joining, everybody. I do appreciate it. Tonight really is going to be kind of like the best thing I can do as far as if somebody says, all right, so the FBI is corrupt, boo-hoo, what do we do? Yeah. Who steps in? What would we do in the event that this was proven? If you're a regular member of my audience, I've probably shown you enough material by now to demonstrate that there's some pretty serious concerns relative to the legitimacy of what the FBI is undergoing and doing currently with their general activities. We've seen, especially over the last, I would say, several years, more and more increasingly activities relative to the FBI where we're all kind of raising an eyebrow and going like, are we really supposed to believe that? Or do you really want us to accept that narrative? Or again, there's some things that I think a lot of people could disagree on that's more, how do I say it? Just a lot of fictional news scenarios, things that are allegedly being investigated as crimes, but I think a lot of people have caught on to aren't real cases. And so, what would be the need? Why would we have an agency that would be involved with falsifying information relative to crimes that are federal in nature instead of just going out and fighting crime? What would be the incentives for members within the FBI to simply manufacture narratives and not actually enforce the law? Well, it could if they became corrupt or began corrupt. It could effectively be just an organization whose core function is to absorb cartels and gangs, almost like a corporation does, and manage them as, quote, informants and federal, what do you want to call it? Witnesses that are being relocated and protected. So, like the Witness Protection Program, for example. As far as I can tell, and this has been based on experiences directly discussing things with them. In one case in Portland, And after I had that experience, and I realized that not a whole lot was going to happen because they seemed to almost be being plain willfully stupid with me, and it was very frustrating, to be honest with you, dealing with the FBI in that case, because I was kind of thinking to myself, are you actually not hinting? I mean, do you not get what I'm explaining to you? Like if, for example, I was trying to explain to them that I knew things about, well, a lot of the ways these things are being manufactured. It wasn't that I really delved excessively into that. I tried to stay focused on the technology type things that I was aware of, telecommunication hacks, backdoors, and of that nature. I was trying to like reach them at that kind of heart level to say, like, aren't you concerned about some of these more sophisticated telecommunication hacks? Because I don't think that even your own 800 number into the human trafficking hotline is really functional. I don't think that you really have a good method for truly collecting tips for people who are victims of human trafficking. And increasingly, I've discovered that in America, we have a system where victims of human trafficking and other dark activities connected to it are simply ignored, disregarded, and bought and sold pretty much out in the open now. And there's not a lot of things being done about it at a federal law enforcement level because it is such an ugly topic, and not very many people would like to dedicate their lives into fighting that problem. Not many people are willing to take it on. And I'm going to be straight up with you. There's a good reason why. Even if you're a really good natured, good hearted person, number one, um, it does hurt inside to deal with it. Like to be around the people that when there's like times where they get in your face and they really make it to where they tell you what they're doing, and they know they can get away with doing that. That's pretty heart-wrenching when you know that it's something that's so far beyond you individually, and to have that happen to you over and over again, it yeah, it's something I have a hard time letting go, fighting it. Hang on. Sorry, hang on. Bad timing. All right. All right, I'm sorry. It's just I was trying to explain to somebody recently, and I don't have look, I understand, guys. It's hard for people to understand it. I once had somebody just come straight up to me and just say it to my face what they were doing. They rode around in circles around me and said, "Yeah, they admitted to being a pedophile and told me that they get away with it." And I think at this point now, this is how bad the problem is, guys. There's just no enforcement in a genuine way. They make things up. They'll pretend that they did something, but they didn't. I'm sorry. I should have prepared myself for this. I'm sorry. I was really trying to keep it together. All right. Well, I'm just trying. Okay, so what I'm talking about is the jurisdictional issues in America, and what happens when the FBI just doesn't do what they're supposed to do. And you know what the problem is, and you bring information to them. And then you can tell that they're not only not going to do anything about it, but you can kind of tell that, well, when you start tracing back the way everything goes from this place to that place to this place to that place, you're like going, I'm pretty sure you're just managing the cartels and the gangs now. And that's what this whole thing is. And then once I understood that they're doing it that with the gangs and the cartels that are more of the like, drugs and guns type thing, then it became obvious to me that they were also managing the other things that were relative to human trafficking and other dark activities connected to it. And so what I was just explaining here, just for those joining, thank you for joining, by the way. Appreciate that. Um, Guys, it's why even though I was upset with the FBI, it's why I did so much to like bite my tongue and just try to appeal to them over and over again. Like, I know you're good people. Maybe you're intimidated. It's just like that thing where it's like, "Oh, are you scared?" And I'm just a guy, I'm just one guy. And I know that I get it. But see, here's the thing. Like some people say, like, what are you supposed to do? Like, how can you do something? All right. This is why. My aunt was with the Department of Justice in Seattle, Washington. All right, sorry guys. Let me get this together because I can't be doing this. It gets to me, okay? I can't. I'm trying not to let it because it's like I know what this means energetically. Like I give away my energy to it, and I can't let that happen. It's kind of what they want. So I got to chill out. So I don't want you guys to get sad with me here at all. Like I want this to be about let's understand it. Okay, this isn't about being sad. It's about getting down to the problem and figuring out like why do I do what I do? Why do I look for partners that get it? Why do I do full metal disclosure? Why have I approached this whole issue the way that I have? It's because we exist in a country where federal federal law enforcement is we have two. I think we have a few things going on. I think you've got some pretty mostly low level people that are very good that I think did join to do the right thing. And I think they are pretty holy minded people and probably are fairly decent. And I think if they knew the full gravity of everything that was going on, they would absolutely want to do something about it. But there's gatekeepers of information that prevent those people from ever learning these things. And then those people, I think, are assigned to the false narratives, which are made every bit as hyper realistic to them as they are to anybody else out there in the country. Otherwise, none of this would work. These fake narratives that we see in the news that we all know lead back to something else that's phony. Excuse me, hang on real quick. All right. Sorry. All right. It's it became really obvious to me because like when I was in Portland, they've had a long history of Shanghai. They have a pretty extensive history of having underground tunnels and that human trafficking was kind of just a known economy. Seattle has a similar problem. It's something that's almost like a family business type thing where it's like multi-generational and the people involved in it always control it. And it just extends out into things like organ harvesting, spare parts for people who are rich and need a kidney or a heart, for example, just a couple examples, or may need some rare plasma or blood from a person with a rare blood group. especially if they're Rh negative and O blood type. And I think the plasma spectrum, they look for other types of blood groups. I don't think that Rh negative and O is the only one that's valued, although I've focused on that extensively here. The more I'm looking into this, the more I realize that it's really just about the rarity of the plasma and the blood, and compatibility factors play a role. And it's just like, it's a little bit just like it would be with like electronic parts. If you had something that was universally compatible, it would be, that could serve a radio function, for example, that could work anywhere, anytime. Well, of course, everybody would want that, but those are expensive to make. So they have to limit the bandwidth on a radio, for example, to what it's needed for, so that you don't have to pay that much for things you don't need. Man, you guys, I'm sorry. It's like sometimes these people, like, they've gotten like so freaking in my face in such aggressive, horrible ways. And I've already seen too much in my life to like have like another one do it and then have nowhere to go for justice. It puts something inside me that it's hard to get rid of. I'm not weak. I don't just back down. I don't just go, that's hard, I'm walking away. I don't do that. But I also have to have people that, are really in it to start showing themselves, so that people around me have greater faith that what I'm doing is in fact the thing, that what I've researched is an actual thing, and it is going to come to an end. Not just in my lifetime, but way sooner than anybody would like to ever admit to themselves, who are on the dark side. I am your worst nightmare. Those of you playing ball for that mafia family that I've been talking about, I know you inside and out, all of you. I know the way your minds work. I know the way you use occult mirroring. It's very effective. Their use of mirrors and occultism is extremely effective in technology, as well as just straight up just creating mirrors of perception that just F with the human brain like you would not believe. Masters of psychological warfare. And I've gone pretty much head to head with them for a few years straight. And thank you to everybody who helps and has helped and supports. And even if we don't always have, even if we don't, like, a lot of people have helped me and do help me, are helping me. And, many of us see eye to eye all the time. Sometimes we don't always see eye to eye, but I still love you all and appreciate you all, especially the one closest to me. I've watched this group chip away at my family and me, and more than one person that I love dearly. They chipped away at their soul. They abused them pretty much ritualistically. This is done with intention. This is done to rule. This is done to become the master of another group. It's a cruel, insidious practice that's existed for a long time that some people believe in rigidly to dominate and control over another population through these adoptions, oftentimes, or control of the children. And so I'm just telling you that the problem is that we have in our country some people that are just masters at making themselves look like victims or like the ones that did everything right and making people like me look like the bad guy. They're experts at it. And I've been going head to head with them, knowing that I'm being helped in significant ways from the sidelines because I trust those people like you would not believe. I have so much faith in them. And I knew that if I opened myself up to them, that they would vindicate me and that they would prove that my information was real. And that I just had to stop being hostile to people, not hostile, but just unfriendly, I guess you could say, to groups that I might have been suspect to before. Because your help comes from all different, groups. And so that's why you guys find me sometimes. Like I know the 33 thing, right? Like everybody's going to be like, what's that about? Well, it's like the 33 thing existed even before Freemasons, but I put that there for a reason, guys. I'm not a Freemason. But see, when it's like you get all these people that say it's the Freemasons and things that are doing this and that, I'm like going, I don't know what to tell you guys. I've had some that have really helped me out and care about our country deeply. So I think we need to stop saying that it's that's all these people or all that people or these groups are all in on it. I don't even think it's entirely the FBI guys. And that's what this whole thing is about tonight is the FBI's lack of action and what has to happen when it's proven that they're either incompetent, which I don't think is truly the case. I think that you have a group that's very competent, but misled through gatekeepers within the FBI who feed them falsified information to research. And then they're like, I guess this is the truth that's being presented to me. What else is my job? But they must know if they're smarter than average, that something's wrong with it, that they're like virtual cases. They're not real. And I think they get a lot of them because they changed the actual case to a mirror of perception. I don't know what else to tell you guys. This problem is serious. And like I said, my Aunt Catherine Warma, you can look her name up, Catherine with a K. She's and I'll play some articles tonight. In fact, I probably need to just to show you guys why I know so much about this. That's probably the best thing for me to do is start off with like a short article on like I know a lot of you have seen it, but this may help you understand like why I know so much. I've gone to people, guys, both in my family that should be able to help with all these things, and they just don't do it. And the reason why I don't respond well to people telling me, like, are you sure your family, blah, 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 is because, yeah, I've gone to them since I was a little kid. The answer has always been the same. Trying to get me to do the same. You don't see it, you don't hear it, and you don't speak about it. But I did see it, I did hear it, and I'm speaking about it, and I have been speaking about it for a long time. And I'm not a monkey. Sorry, guys. All right. No, my aunt is not still active. But here's the thing, guys. I started talking about these things and asking for assistance with things that were going on around me as far back and before I even knew what the hell was going on. as far back as 2012. So if I've got maybe 2013, to be fair, no, it's 2012. I got emails. I still have the emails. So when I was all the way back then asking for help, and I'm still what? We're going on, geez, here it is, 2021, that I reached out to my uncle who's married to my Aunt Catherine Worma, who had just retired from the Department of Justice. And my life has gone nothing but into like a serious spiral of ever since. It just gets worse. It's like the more I tell my family about what's going on and what I witness, the worse my life gets. And the better theirs gets. They're all just doing wonderful. Now, I'm not saying this about the entire family. It's not all of them. But there's just a select some where I'm kind of like, why are you doing so well and pretending that everything that I'm saying doesn't exist? Y'all need to look into that. Everyone. I'll challenge anybody with this information. Find out why my birth certificate has vaccination records that are backdated to 1972 when I was born in 1974. Riddle me that, Riddler. How did that happen? Why is it that when I research the doctor that's on my birth certificate, I kind of figure he's a puppet character? Because a real person had to have birthed me, right? So why did I have a fake doctor? Why did I, when I questioned my mother on this topic, did she seem evasive and go, "Oh, well, no, that wasn't our regular doctor, actually. They were a person that had to fill in that night." Were they? Are you sure? So I know something about something about something, and there's people that got something to hide about something. That's all. And see, once, if anybody takes me seriously, and this family knows that, this very powerful family whose power is mostly hidden and behind the scenes, there's puppets, and then there's people that got their hands up the puppets. You never see the people who got their hands up their puppets. They're underneath the stage. They're like Frank Oz in the Muppets, right? Or you're seeing Kermit the Frog when Jim Henson's down there with the little things going like this. Hi ho, I'm Kermit the Frog. Right? Not to be humorous excessively here, folks, but right? So who's the puppet and who's the puppet master? And all I'm telling you is that what I've discovered in my family is the reason why everybody's like this is because there's at least a few puppet masters in the mix who hold mid-level rank positions that you don't even pay attention to, because those are the doorways into the puppet who appoints them to those positions. While they pretend to be middle class, upper middle class, controlling somebody that's very elite and very upper class and very elitist and connected to everybody. Because that's the real cover. That's how it really works. That's why I get no help within this very, very, very influential, extremely powerful family, whose power you would never be able to detect from the outside unless you had a great deal of sophistication. Then once you have that sophistication, then you have to buy the narrative that they're doing it for a good reason or a bad reason. Or you have to go like, well, it's a little bit gray because we don't really understand that. And all I'm saying is that I've really tried to figure it out. And I just discovered over and over again that there was even, guys, I'll be real with you. And I don't want anybody to feel insulted by this, but there's been times where people approach me claiming to be enemies of this family. And I discovered that they were just a crisis actor whose role is to be there to find enemies of the family and to be a confidant to those people pre-established. So they set this person out there as a puppet to go like, grr, grr, I don't like this family. And here's all the negative things that they've done. And I don't like them. And you should talk to me. And here's my email address. And come to me and tell me everything you hate about this family too. And we'll work together. No, they ain't going to work with you. They're going to railroad you. They're going to tell you how hopeless the whole thing is and how they've been trying and trying and trying to help. But mind you, guys, that's kind of true. That is whatever. I mean, yeah, that's been my situation. I guess the difference is though, I can tell you that if with the right resources and everything, guys, I would absolutely be facing this head on. I just can't do it in the situation that I'm in. I just don't know what to do. So tonight's just explaining to you how I got to where I'm at with this situation. You know, it's a personal thing. I know we're 30 minutes into this thing and I'm not even getting to the core of it. So sorry. But you need to know like why it's personal to me. And then I'm going to show you a few articles that I've done on the FBI, the human trafficking hotline, and maybe one or two about like my family. And so let me get some of that put into this browser here real quick. Oops, hang on. Stop that. All right. All right. So I'm trying to think of the best way to structure this material. I'm going to show you this list that I have here of clips. By the way, if you don't know my material, you're not a person that's watched me regular. Even if you have, but you didn't know about my extensive lists of playlists. I have lists and lists of playlists where I have a lot of different videos accumulated that are like on select topics that I've done because I've done thousands of hours of material for the last 5 years, and so to find every clip that I've done is kind of a challenge. And very few people would be willing to go through that much material. But I've tried to accumulate common themed material into playlists. So if you're interested in things that are only about energetics, or if you want to know things that are more about like corruption and like how technology hacks work at a more layperson's level of understanding, then this playlist that I've done is really for everybody. It's there for everybody who's in intelligence circles, military, general public. I mean, whatever it is, I want everybody to be able to understand the issues as I've learned them and why I got concerned about it at the level that I did. And so I put it all into this one playlist. It just is my full name is Justin Gabriel Cruz, information sharing for concerned parties or something like that. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Hang on. I just had it over here. Yeah, information sharing with concerned parties. Okay, so, and I can give you guys a link to that. Excuse me. All right, so I put that in the chat section. I'm going to be using that playlist to show you the next few clips, and this is what it is here. All right. So before I get into this material, I just want to like say this, last thing on a more personal note. I mean, the way I look at this, folks, the technology hacks and what it leads back to when it all is said and done is the technology hacks is supporting an ecosystem that basically props up and makes human trafficking far less traceable and makes it far more challenging to catch the people that do it. And if we don't decipher the technology hacks, they will continue doing their things indefinitely, which is not something that I personally feel comfortable with and can sleep at night knowing. I mean, I sleep at night, don't get me wrong, but I think I'd sleep a lot better if I just knew these folks were being held accountable, because I know where it leads back to. And even if you don't want to hold them accountable, just end the system. Figure it out, guys, because there's people that are watching. They know that I'm not full of it. They know that I've done a lot of research, and even if I have a few things wrong with a few data points or whatever from time to time, because nobody's perfect. I mean, guys, do you understand that, like, even amongst professional engineers in the wireless industry, that sometimes just explaining something, like within a very basic, like distributed antenna system or a cell tower design, that like there is times where we could spend days, even sometimes like, longer, just going over one individual design on one tower. I mean, just like going hours and hours, people debating it back and forth on the pros and cons, and generating various forms of opinions and technical arguments. And this, I mean, really, this is just how we all function in general. So, anyways, I don't want to talk too much about all that. I just want to like tell you that the solutions just don't always happen overnight, and they don't always happen on a definitive timeline that you can establish and say that you know exactly when they're going to end. And I liken what's going on in America right now to a serious civil war, wherein the guilty parties have connections to the Chinese Communist Party, wherein they're effectively, I think, trading technology innovations that can be weaponized on the American population. They're being given them that are backdoors into firmware on many Chinese manufactured parts within smartphones that everybody is effectively forced to use because there's no other parts to select from. When you get down to the microchip level, when you get down to all the ways the core functionality of those things work, there's really very, very few people in very few countries anymore that have the brain power and the number of professional engineers who really get it. And by the way, I'm not one of those people that really, you look, I can maneuver my way around some of these things when it comes to like firmware on smartphones. I know enough to know that it's an issue, that things can get backdoored, that things can get provisioned through firmware, or changing things within radio states that are at the core of a phone in ways that the average person wouldn't know about, but the manufacturers of the chipsets or the individual part within a smartphone would know about. So, like an iPhone may be an iPhone by Apple, but it could have, 100 parts that are from various manufacturers. The screen could be from, Corning, who sells Gorilla Glass screens. I don't know who they get theirs from, but I mean, that's one company. Apple doesn't make those. The radio that makes your 4G, 3G, 2G, 1G work, is a wideband radio. And then the one chip that does the radio might be from one manufacturer. And then the one that drives the power through it is a whole nother chip manufacturer. I mean, when you think about the complex relationships that all these small parts have between each other within a smartphone, all I can tell you guys is that maybe I don't have the brain power to engineer that or necessarily dissect all one of those things and tell you what every one of those parts is, but I do have the brain power to know that a person within like a Chinese manufacturer that could backdoor those radio states could open up and provision certain radios within smartphones in ways that most people would be clueless about, but it could be in a very automated AI type fashion where it would just scan for open frequencies and hive different radios together and form private networks. And then you have illicit material that can be transferred, money laundering activities that would occur from device to device over a private, wireless area interface that's been, basically auto populated. And then when they get a patsy or a mule user, then this is when all of them, after they've done all their activities amongst each other's phones, then they use the patsy and the mule to send out the encrypted packets of whatever information on that person. This is just one of the many hacks that I've determined is going on. Okay. And there's lots of different economies that it works within. And it's used for pretty much everything, which makes me kind of an unpopular person at times because honestly, guys, there's people that are out there that'll use this same system of communication and same system of payment, money laundering, simply to be a drug user or a drug seller. Well, look, guys, I'm not going to tell you that whatever. To me, that's just a free will decision. I'm not saying that I support it. I would hope that anybody who has addiction issues would get that taken care of. But again, I'm not saying that from any type of whatever. Like I've had, my own histories with things, guys. It's never like any out of any sense of judgments or anything like that. It's mostly that I don't have a moral issue, I guess you could say, with people that are engaged with crimes involving free will, where a person makes a decision to get something, they get it from a person who sells it. To me, that's just really kind of just one of those things. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, you should do some degree of I guess you could say harm mitigation to make sure there's not a lot of dangerous, like serious crap or whatever out there that can just have absolutely no value. But whatever we have in this country is completely ridiculous. I mean, they'll criminalize cannabis, like it's a Schedule 1 drug, has no medical benefit, even though what we've got like somewhere in the neighborhood of pretty close to 40 out of the 50 states that at least have made agreements that it has medical purposes, if not full blown open to being recreational. And then when we have a federal agency that's connected to the DEA, the FBI, and the DOJ that kind of goes, no, guys, actually, we think that cocaine and amphetamines are like far less harmful than marijuana. Okay. Things like that go on in this country right now that I think most people would agree are pretty obscene and absurd. And you have to ask yourself, like, how have we even gotten to this level of insanity and absurdity relative to the things that are enforced and not enforced? So we have a group of people that can spend months and months and months still. They probably don't to the because it's so politically unfavorable. But you realize that we're dealing with a group of federal agencies that can still to this day, despite all these things that are going on politically in our country and what the way people agree that whatever, they'll still go out there and try to find people with illegal pot farms. They're still trying to find them. But finding human trafficking victims doesn't even have an agency dedicated to it. They've got a whole agency dedicated to finding, some illegal bricks of weed. They have no agency dedicated to finding missing kids. They have no agency that's officially dedicated. No, they don't. They really don't. There is no federal law enforcement agency that is dedicated the same way they are to drugs as they are to human trafficking victims. It is a side function of the FBI that they treat like a side function. They basically wean you out to an 800 number, 888-373-7888, very occulted, by the way. 37 victims of the Zodiac killer. The Zodiac, the whole thing is that nobody gives a shit. Sorry to be blunt. They're victims of kills and sacrifices and murders that everybody lets it happen to because nobody feels sympathetic to them, or they just don't know what to think, so they look the other way. Something I know a lot about because I know some of the people that do that shit. Nothing being done. All right. So it's kind of trippy. So when you notice that the FBI themselves isn't doing anything really about human trafficking, and they tell everybody, knowing the Zodiac killer had 37 victims, and the whole big joke about the Zodiac is that they're the one person that was the suspect, the main suspect, Arthur Lee Allen, was a boy molester. He was a child molester, and he specifically was into little boys. And so when you got that character, okay, the Arthur Lee Allen that's connected to the Zodiac lore, when you've got that particular character um, associated with the 37, and then the way that they um, make the 888-373-7888 the human trafficking hotline call-in number that leads to a nonprofit agency, not even a federal agency that monitors this. It is a nonprofit agency called Polaris. And then once you look deeper into them and all of their promotional materials, is the kind of thing that just makes you put your face in your hands and damn near cry. Because then you realize the problem if you really understand the way these people communicate and what that line really is. Just look into it. Okay, again, guys. So the way they troll people like us is they go like, "You just see something in everything. That's not really happening." Yeah, it is. I know the architects of it. I don't just make these things up out of thin air. I wish it were that simple. I would just shut the I mean, is that what it is, though? I mean, nothing is being done about, I don't know. See, that's the problem. Um, and so within the context of this article, I guess all I'm trying to say is that I tried to lay a groundwork wherein I established emails, phone calls, whatever you want to say, with certain members of my family that I know should have been able to help relative to the things that I'm discussing, whether it was some of the technology hacks with infrastructure and cell towers, or it was things relative to the activities that were occurring around me that were pretty bizarre. All of the major key figures that I would go to in my family that it would have either national security or FBI type functions or DOJ type function connections or be close to those types of functions. They all basically did well, you're a very nice person and we really appreciate you and your parents really love you and I love you. So can't really help you though. Don't know anything about those things. Goodbye. And then you just don't hear from them like pretty much ever after that, or very little. And then I started to research, my family. And then I discovered that there's all these people that claim that my family do these things to people. Just being real with you. They're basically saying that there's certain members of my family, again, not a lot, but just some, that have engaged in activities that would be consistent with causing certain people to be aggressively harassed, to where when they sought help from law enforcement they would not receive it and they would be unsympathetic to law enforcement, and it would be really bizarre when they tried to get that help. That's when I was like, who has that kind of power to put a chill on somebody that way? Who could do that, and why would they do it, and where are they, and where do they exist, and why are they allowed to continue? So when you see the level of connections that I have, so how close these people are to core functions of national security or gatekeepers to receiving justice in America at a federal level, yes, I have high expectations of my family and I expect more than a pat answer of like, yeah, I don't really know about that. Don't None of my law enforcement friends could help you either, so I don't know. Oh, you got potential, bro. I mean, just patronizing answers. And look at the types of material I've done. Extensive research. I mean, I've done, I've like looked up all these different systems. I mean, I've dissected like what they do from a frequency level, as from my work as an engineer that used to, I used to do FCC filings relative to all these frequencies that I'm discussing with you. I mean, I was a person that was involved with regulatory filings of FCC licensed bands for wireless service providers, companies like Verizon, companies like US Cellular, companies like Sprint, who is now owned by T-Mobile. That's what I did. And so for anybody in my family to come back at me with such simple, like nonsense type responses and then also leave me flailing, yeah, I tend to look upon them kind of harshly because I have greater expectations from the people that are in my bloodline, despite the things that I learned. I just thought there would be others that would kind of jump in to kind of say, like, yeah, that's wrong. Yeah, we're all better than this. But we should at least do something, within inside our own group to hold whoever accountable or whatever, at least to say, like, we're not down with this. Because it's like the names of some of the others that I knew are really nice. It's like they get muddied and they get it's like their last, like my families that are connected to the Silvas, for example. I mean, to me, I feel like they're almost like there's people that are in the family that are going out of their way to tarnish the name of the Silvas and like eradicate and delete it. It's bizarre. But, until you understand larger agendas and why that sometimes happens. I'm not going to get into the whole DNA and bloodline thing, but yeah, there's that. So basically, I think what my information has really been about has been establishing that, number one, I have gone to the FBI. I did, in fact, go to a military recruitment office. I did have some frank discussions with some people there. I did it. I made sure to do it on camera to where there would be an archive of it to where if I ever came back and somebody said, "Hey, where were you? When were you there?" I'd be able to go, "Yeah, you could go look up the conversation that I had with those people." And again, it wasn't anything serious. I didn't like file a report there inside the recruitment office. I simply explained to them because I knew that there was multiple. See, look, they're not going to let a military recruitment office go unsurveillanced. Let's be real. So I knew what I was doing. I was in a surveillance environment with the intention. This is full metal disclosure. This is how it works. And I didn't do it to be manipulative. This was to help America. This was actually to benefit those in the military because I had an intuition leading into my dealings with the FBI that the FBI wasn't going to do anything about it. Now, I didn't want that to be like this idea that I sold myself on because I think you program people with your belief or your lack of faith to some degree. So I actually went in, I would say, with a healthy optimism, almost foolish optimism, quite frankly. Like, you know something? I think when I really sit down with one of these people, they're going to get it and they're going to pull me in right away and go like, "Yeah, we need to get you some protection and out of that bad situation you're in. Let's get you out of there, kid. This is like, we got to get this taken care of." I was like so foolish thinking that that would happen. They just didn't do it. It was like damn near the opposite. But at the end of it, despite the fact that I'd said that like I want to hand you information, I want to give you this information, they were like, "No, that's kind of complicated. You should really upload that to IC3.gov." And I kind of go, and I'm like, the problem here is loading it to IC3.gov. It's the gatekeeper system within the FBI. Don't you get it? You're not going to see this information. It's nothing's going to happen with it. I want to hand it to you. I want to present it to you. Don't you get it? I'm a good American just sitting here trying to explain something really complicated to you. I didn't even understand the Chinese communist aspect of it yet. I was still kind of like going, "What are you guys so xenophobic for over there? Why don't you like China?" Well, it's not about liking China, guys. I love China. I think, again, I like the Chinese culture. I like the Chinese people. Nothing that I ever say to you guys about CCP is ever about the people. I love the people. I think they have a great culture. I think there's just such amazing things going on over there. Great innovations. I think, they've done some pretty amazing things. Like the way they cleaned up the air in Shanghai was pretty impressive. I don't know what the hell they did there, but, somebody's got to take some notes there. If that's real, I don't know. But I heard that they really cleaned up the air a lot. They did this aggressive like air filtration thing. So yeah, I mean, there's cool things going on in China. But see, communist governance doesn't work for America. It just never will. And trying to convince us all through this sort of backdoor method of using social justice movements like Antifa isn't going to be effective. It won't work. And the method that's being used is so bizarrely occulted that it's made it to where it's painfully obvious to everybody in the country now that there's just something that's way 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 wrong with everything. You're doing it so aggressively bad by design because that's part of the way that it's done by these people. I don't know, I'm talking to them directly, but yeah, they're just doing it so aggressively bad that it's nearly calling attention to the other side. I don't know, maybe that's the way they give up is by doing it so bad that it just makes it to where people are forced to step in and go like, "Hey man, now you've taken it too far. Now you're just not even trying to trick us." Grr. Because it's like that, guys. It's become so obvious how fake things are that they're not even trying to trick anybody anymore. Why anybody believes that some of these like drug kingpins exist that don't really exist, I don't know. Those aren't really the people that are running it. It's just like a corporate business, like cocaine trade. It's like a corporate business now. Shipping docks and everything else. They just backdoor it all through these really weird esoteric means that most people just can't figure out. That are just mirrors of other transactions that they just sell drugs and kids and guns and everything else for. Again, if you're selling drugs and guns, I don't care. Not my business. That's between those people. I don't want to be involved in it. I don't want to be involved in it. and I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want anybody using me as a patsy or a mule for financial routes relative to it. What I'm just saying is that, whatever. So I think the problem that I've observed is, so within America now, we have a federal agency that is basically not really enforcing the law as much as managing cartels. And so who gets to step in when the criminal is in fact the ones that would bust the criminal? Who is the internal investigations of the FBI if their own internal investigations fail? Who is the next step? And do we have any laws in place? I'm asking, actually. I don't have an answer to this except for what I've been had told to me by the sidelines, which I'll share with you. But I'm asking you folks out there as a challenge to, not even a challenge, but like, please go try to find this information for yourselves. Because, like, we all know, basically, we're taught in school, like when the president dies or something happens to him, the vice president's in charge. And then when the vice president dies, then, you get the Speaker of the House, God forbid. Oh my God, dude. Can you see what you think? Joe Biden's bad. We got Kamala Harris and then Nancy Pelosi waiting on the sidelines for us. Good. Oh man, save us, please. Oh my God. Right. That's it's not funny, folks, but it's just like, that's just like such an absurdly bad proposition to have to even entertain, where you're just like going, really? Are we in this position now? Seriously? Oh my God. They've made it to where like it's like the least favorable thing in the world for something to happen to Biden. It's almost like all these people are just like, "What? No, just like keep him propped up, give him some uppers, whatever it takes. Just keep Biden breathing, keep him talking. Does he need some electrical bolts? What does he need?" Anyways, um, so once we're at a phase now where we have an FBI director that says, "Who's Antifa? I don't even know what that is," and his name is Director Ray. We've got pretty much gangs and cartels and other high tech hackers that are out there using X ray, gamma ray, and all kinds of sophisticated forms of electromagnetic entrainment effectively as a method of steering people off the road to make them more readily available for organs on the open market. FBI not investigating. Why? Who's funding all this and making it a reality? I think what's gone on, folks, honestly, is that SAIC and Leidos pumped these agencies, the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA, all three. You have two companies that have backdoors into all of their information gateways. And to where the agencies themselves are like going, is this what's happening? Really? Man, really? Wow. I guess this machine says so. No, SCIC and Leidos are telling you so. The same companies with a CEO named Nazi King. Wake up. Guys, can the spell be lifted for anybody who's still in it? Do you still need convincing? Here is why the US military gets to step in. Here is why the US military is stepping in. Because the FBI is not doing their job. Moreover, they've taken it to the next level, and many within that organization have been proven to be managing gangs, cartels, and cyber hackers all across America and effectively dismantling America from within. And they have partners within the Chinese Communist Party that they do this with, all while blaming Russia for every single thing that happens. Who would do something like that? Who in America would be incentivized to do something like that? Well, did the Nazis ever go after the Chinese that you can remember? Did you ever hear them putting any of the Asians on their list? No, in fact, if I recall, they allied a bit with the Japanese for a little while, right? To this day, you can find people that are Japanese that'll identify as Nazi in certain pockets. Trippy, right? Okay. So what's really going on in America right now? Folks, as weird and as bizarre as it may seem, what we truly do have here is this Operation Paperclip infiltration that's been going on since 1945 and defining for America what it should think, tricking us all into believing narratives that just don't exist at all, false histories entirely. While they manage everything, all these just creating history books and manufacturing things and just making it all up, faking it until they make it. And we have entire people that we believe that have existed for over 100 years or have families that go back generations that just don't. Just like, yeah, thank you, Lisa. Just like Nazi S. Keen, Nazi King. I mean, it's just like, it makes you just like go, like, really? Who is believing this? Where is your conscious mind? Why would you think that nobody would ever think to do this? And why would anybody gaslight this? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Nazi King. Case closed. Exactly. You said it perfectly. It's so obscene at this point what's going on. So what I'm telling you guys is like I forgive those of you who made mistakes in perceiving things because these people are managing all of your perceptions. There is a wizard behind the curtain that makes you perceive your friend as your enemy. And it is this company, if you ask me. It's SAIC and Leidos. They have way too much control over NSA, FBI, CIA, gatekeeper, informational functions. Way too much. Then, when you learn that the company was effectively founded by a guy who had a bizarre interest in younger men, traveled with his young quote. They say that the polite way they say it is that he traveled with his young male companions, who he coined the term Bayster's baby boys. He literally had young males that I don't know what age they were. They just called them young males. They call them young male companions. You make whatever determinations you want to from that term. But of these young male companions, many of whom held internships or job functions, either first as an intern, then got to be hired on. Wait a minute. Hey, big brother, isn't that how you got started at SEIC? That's right. You're like the intern thing, and they paid for your college, and then you became a 6-year employee. That's right. Okay. All right. Just saying. Yeah, my big brother was one of those young male interns who became an employee. Did he know Bob Bannister? I don't know. Maybe that's why there's so many secrets kept. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. I don't know, bruh. The things a person does to get ahead. I don't, maybe not. Who knows? I have no clue, guys. I'm not trying to cast any aspersions. I'm just always wondering why anytime I've ever brought any information to this guy, he's always been like, I'm going to defend this company over my little brother. Little brother, are you sure you're not misperceived about everything about SEIC? They're golden. Man, they're like a rainbow sherbet lollipop. Yeah, it's the new Stasi. They created it. SEIC created a new Stasi. They want everybody suspicious of each other, chasing after each other, and never knowing that the wizard that's making this big game of Pokemon Go happen, we're all Pokemon going one another, is them. So please wake up and stop perceiving your friend as your enemy. And please support the people that are fighting this problem head on, because we don't deserve to have our perceptions gaslit. It's happened to us our whole lives. That being said, just because I don't want my perception gaslit does not mean that I can't have my narrative questioned. I welcome questioning my narrative in a productive way that actually will make me provide more. 'Cause honestly, I welcome the challenge, because as long as it's done respectfully, because I want people to feel, genuinely satiated one way or the other, as to whether or not they should have confidence in the data. That's all. That's reasonable, and I'm okay with it. And and I've actually just volunteered to sit down with people, and if they want to question me on things, especially if they're supportive or whatever, I've been always happy to do that. And people will tell you that. There's been people I've spent many days, weeks, sometimes, even like over months with. And we talked extensively, and I let them know me, and vice versa. Some good experiences, some bad, you know. Yep. Oh man, the good comments tonight. Yeah. So Lisa and White Boy are both yeah. Good comments, yeah. Um yeah, there's definitely something going on here relative to this. I'm gonna get back to the comments soon, but I wanna get into the next part here. Once we've established this whole thing, and I'm gonna show you some materials that'll support that. Here's what I'm asking here, folks. And so now that I've told you what I believe the problem is, I'm going to provide a little bit of supporting material. It'll play for the next 20, 30 minutes. And it's some of my video material that I've done previously that show you my personal connection to people within the DOJ, FBI, NSA, NSD type functions, and why I came to the conclusions that I did, or why I have questions that I do relative to the legitimacy of what I've been told from them. And I'm going to play that for you now. And then while you're watching it, I'm asking you that if you accept that this is a possibility that the FBI, or you already believed it, and that maybe you were well more educated than me and had already done your research and already proven this out. I'm the kind of person that even if like 1,000 people say, Gabe, the FBI is corrupt, don't go to them, I'm still going to be that stupid kid with the bucket over his head that walks up to the front door and goes, boom, boom, boom. I'm just like that, guys. What do you want me to tell you? It's just my nature. I still try, because I just feel like somebody's got to. And, that's what I did. I basically went to the FBI with the bucket on my head and just kind of went against the wall. Boom, 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 boom. Maybe they'll notice finally that I'm trying to give them real information. It's like, no, he just looks like a dumb guy slamming a bucket. I didn't actually slam a bucket over my head, guys. Don't worry. But as far as talking to the FBI, it had about the same effect. I may as well have just put a bucket over my head and just stood against the brick wall that was their, office, and just sat there going donk, 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 donk. Really, it has about that much effectiveness, just as much as going in and talking to them, because they won't protect you, they won't take the information in, and they'll probably go back to their superiors and go like, "How do we hide this?" Not how do we help this person and how do we help our country. Yeah, someone says, do I see this corruption getting dismantled this next year? Yeah, I do. Honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that it's taking as long as it does, but the reason why I try not to get in that mentality is because I know what it's like to be working on a problem like this, and to have people that are being critical of timelines. I'm not saying that towards anybody in particular, guys, and it's not about any situations that I have, and I want that to be known. It's because I was in a job function where, like when I used to build cell towers, I used to have people like all the time, like going like, why isn't this happening fast enough? And like, why, hey, you got this other one built in 6 months. How come this one's taking a year? And I go, because not every cell tower is the same. Some you have zoning issues. Some you have to go back and forth with the road building plans. Some the zoners or the city won't let you put in the electrical. Some require that you build a huge road, or there's something involving an easement, or there's something where you have to bring in a special team to do supports for the tower that's going to get. I mean, there's so many things that can happen that you don't learn until after you begin the project. That when somebody just goes like, "Well, you could do that better, you can do that faster." Well, I get why you think so, but you've never been in my shoes. And some of those people, I would literally go over like to their groups and like talk to them about it for like, like once a week or once every 2 weeks. I'd literally like have a sit down and go like, okay, here's why I do what I do and why each project is taking as long as it is. Are you happy? No. Nothing I said was going to satisfy them. So I just learned to accept that after a while, that I just had to get the job done, and that I had developed bullfrog skin to the criticism after a while. I don't think you ever develop entirely whatever. But yeah, because you just know that certain things take a long time, and it's not always predictable when it's going to do this or that. Um, and so managing that conversation with grace and tact is challenging, because you understand, like, I think the reason why is because sometimes the reason why people are questioning your timeline is because they're passionate about what they want to do, right? And so it wasn't coming from a negative perspective. They were just like, hey, I really want that situation to get better over there. People drop calls in that area and it's dangerous. And I want to know when you're going to build that tower. I'd be like, dude, I'm with you. I'm, I want it. I want people to be safer too. In what world are we not on the same side? Please understand. I want it built too. I'm building a dozen of these things simultaneously. Yours is just one of them in one town in one region of the places that I build these in. So I'm doing several at a time. Yours is one. I'm working on it. You're good. But thank you for the enthusiasm. I was never trying to be like a jerk about it or anything else like that. It was just simply that, yeah, it can never get done fast enough. And I'm used to working on things that take a really long time to resolve or build or construct or to troubleshoot. It was always my job in the wireless industry to do like forensic troubleshooting or the design and the construction of towers. Okay, or some type of system that had complicated plumbing and required more sophisticated forms of troubleshooting and balancing of the power settings and things like that. I mean, that's the kind of things that I've worked on historically. So I know that it's not a perfect thing. It's kind of an art to understanding it and to explaining it and then to resolving it. And the number of experts there are relative to what I'm talking about are few and far between. So why did I do what I did? Why did I enter into taking the risk? And why would a person like me do it uncompensated? Number one. Well, I didn't really anticipate that I would be uncompensated the entire time. I really did think that there would be more done from the sidelines by these people to help me out or get me a job in an official function. And but at the same time, I really don't think that getting a job with this FBI as it stands right now, without there being serious reforms, would be a wise decision. To me, I think you'd be entering into a losing system. And I think a lot of people have figured that out. And so, what I think that my material is going to wind up doing, honestly, and I really believe this, is whether it ever happens publicly or it's just done back in the background privately, I do believe it's going to establish that certain groups within the Department of Defense, that handle things relative to the security within America. So whether that function be done by Homeland Security, whether that's something that the National Guard is a part of handling, however it works out, or if it's something that military intelligence, like a whole series of branches, the thing that I was given from the sidelines, and you can take it or leave it, was that they effectively had formed like a what do you want to call it, multi-branch, where like pretty much every branch of the military is represented, because it was kind of determined that the extensive technology hacks that exist within America, to unwind them, would require people that had all the different expertise of pretty much every branch. You need people that could do aerial support with the Air Force. You need people that had more reconnaissance and frontline things like the Marines. You need people that could do like the naval functions, like the Coast Guard, things that are more, water functions, for patrolling coastlines relative to radio frequency hacks. If you think about it, the U.S. military was actually the perfect group to handle what the FBI probably isn't equipped to handle on its own, and should have been reaching out to the U.S. military in order to determine and to troubleshoot. And the fact that they don't or didn't is really at the core, I think, of what's going to cause them problems relative to my information. Because I think that once all this is revealed, which I do believe it will be, um, that certain people will be proven to have some pretty I mean, they'll just be brought up on charges of treason, folks. I don't know what else to say. There's people that are going to have proven that they had connections to the Chinese Communist Party here in America, and that they were probably people that had more of a Nazi agenda to begin with and were serving functions relative to the security of America, but they never wanted to see America succeed because they were actually Nazi. I hate to say it, guys, but that's really our problem in America. We just have Nazis that just never, they got here, they populated, they aggressively bred. Okay. They are aggressively breeding. They want to churn out as many little Nazis as possible while exterminating everybody else. Fact. If you're not one of them, it's just where you are on their priority list of extermination. That's the thing I've learned about these people. Terraforming to them is really about controlling genetics top down and the influence leaders. If you're an influence leader and they can't control every one of your thoughts and you're not part of the same agenda as them, you're done. That's how they think. It's off with the head. We don't want you. And so what this material is doing, and thank you for saying that, Lisa, I appreciate that. But what I believe this material will do is it establishes a case that the U.S. military can actually research. And because I have been open to them, I have demonstrated respect for them. They have shown me from the sidelines that whoever it is, folks, again, how do I say this? Like, I have to be able to tell you certain things so that you know that it's something that you can have faith in, because I had to get past a certain barrier of how are they doing this? But once the information, the documentation was put out for me to understand bioenergetics, how telepathy works, technologies called silent mind that they use to communicate amongst each other, things that are discussed in the book by Dan Sherman about that Project Destiny and how they did intuitive communication exercises at the NSA while he was serving in the Air Force. I mean, there's so much evidence about how the military has researched it, studied it, the documentation's out there to where there really shouldn't be any questions that there is a use of technologies relative to telepathy or silent communication or intuitive communication from person to person. And I've just realized that it is being used by people of all different groups, good, bad, and indifferent, just because some people just have a curiosity to try these things out. And I think other people are just part of governments that would seek to deceive another population through this more sophisticated means of doping data sets through backdooring people's subconscious or getting them to believe false narratives using things like intuitive communication or telepathy. See, again, I think you've seen some characters that have been put out there in the media that whether they were real or not, they appear to be, quote, victims of this type of phenomenon. So I'm very conscientious about that. And I don't want to be one of those people or perceived as one. So I stayed away from even discussing the things that I knew about because I knew how easy it would be to paint me as somebody like a Q type person or an Austin Steinbart type person. And again, guys, I don't disagree with people that had a belief in a lot of these movements. I think they were great patriotic Americans. I can understand why they got so swept up in the decrypts and still are to a large degree. But I think that a lot of those narratives really are designed to get you focused on certain things for certain people and not to be doing more together. You know what I'm saying? Like it gets a group of people that normally would be sitting together and coming up with a solution amongst themselves and trying to find other people who think like them and forming a working group to deal with it. It gets all of them decoding and decrypting a narrative that's being released by people that I think are a lot closer to the Department of Energy and SAIC and Leidos, quite frankly. I think that they always want to be controlling every movement, including the Patriot movement, including the Truther movements. And this was just their way of doing it in a more sophisticated way that took a little bit more time to unpackage whether or not it was fake. And then you have the other layer of once one person was faking it, then you realize that another group that might be benevolent would go like, wow, man, all of these people are believing that Q thing. Maybe we should like take that away from them and turn it into something else. You see how that might work, guys? That it would be ping ponging back and forth, And so things like that, I think that a reason why that was put out there was so that perhaps a lot of people, that when all this would happen, that when I would come around, that or be more known, that they would try to paint this type of material as something similar, so that the real technologies and the real innovations that the military might use with a person like me would be disregarded or attributed to a radical patriot movement, or be attributed to something else that would be considered like crazy, quite frankly. And that's going to be difficult to do to me. And anybody who would seek to make that narrative a reality will fail. There's been too many people that have kept an eye on what I've been doing for too long to ever believe a narrative that would paint me as having malicious intentions. I can be incorrect at times, and I'm not always right, and it's always fair to criticize me in that regard. And I don't discourage it, even if sometimes I get butthurt about it. you know, I don't. Yeah, guys. I mean, you want to be right all the time on these types of things, especially, but sometimes you have to accept that no, you're not always right. I'm not always right about every single thing. So I do understand that. Um, but it got to the point where the level of the level of complacency and how complicit people in my own family were relative to this, despite how close they were, was troubling to me, and raised an eyebrow and was just outright suspicious. And as I dug deeper into that and I started learning more about, again, guys, my grandfather was a child abuser. I've told people about that in my public material. I believe that certain people in my family have Nazi connections and just simply don't reveal that. Why would they? They wouldn't want everybody knowing they're Nazis, especially if they're more effective as Nazis hiding it. And, my mother was born in 1945 in the same area as we imported like 1,000, you know, um, what do you want to call it? About 1,000 German and Italian Nazis. And so when they have zero stories to tell you about being in an area that was populated by Nazis, it's a little bit suspicious. It's like, really? There's no Nazi stories. Didn't know, you guys never heard of them. Never saw one. You had, you were like, whether you were just a little baby or a child at the time, I get it, but like certainly your parents had to have told you some stories about the Nazis being in the cut, right? Seriously? Never? They're in a town of like 100 people, and then like overnight, there's a camp that's just around the corner that populates 1,000 Nazis into it. You're not telling me that's not the biggest freaking thing that's ever happened to that area ever, aside from the same place was used as a Japanese internment camp. Because that's kind of like, it seemed to me like Tule Lake, California, region of Northern California is where they were punishing, folks that were, involved with World War II or whatever, or holding them, in that, like what the internment camps did to the Japanese. It wasn't always a sign that the person was guilty of anything. They just answered a questionnaire wrong sometimes and wound up in the camp. It was as simple as that. You had to answer this questionnaire, and then if you didn't, they pretty much put you in the internment camp. Because you might be under having a suspicions of being loyal to the Japanese and potentially being an enemy that's inside America. But here guys, it's a bizarre thing, guys. I want you to think about that. So America took people that oftentimes showed zero signs that they'd ever been anything but loyal Americans. They just had Japanese blood, and they basically just locked them up because they figured that they could do something or might be inclined to do something. But then within like a year of that, in America, we import a few thousand Nazis and don't put them in prisoners of war camps to punish them and extract knowledge from them. We give them top ranking positions in the military, in research departments, in defense circles. We roll out the red carpets to them and their families and welcome them to America and say, make America your own. Why did we do that? Who did that? Why is there an arena in Alabama named after Werner von Braun, an SS Nazi, and no one says a word about it? Why? Guys, ask yourselves this and research it. And then you're going to scratch your head after a while and kind of go, this is kind of effed up. Why didn't I know about this? Exactly. And a whole bunch of people are waking up to this reality like, why didn't I know about this? Why didn't I ever hear about this? Well, I ain't lying to you guys. I can find you more documentation that I could even show you on the screen here about the Tule Lake Nazis. But I digress. Let me show you a couple articles here, okay? Because this is about once you learn what I learn, what is it that you do next? I went basically, I don't want to say too much, guys, but I found creative ways to ensure that people that were within the military that would have a familiarity with me would know where I was, what was going on with me, while also maintaining the right level of weirdness that kept those people safe. That's the best thing that I can tell you. And I'm going to continue keeping them safe, even if I have to be weird. And I don't want to be made to look crazy while I'm doing it. And I'm not offended. Um, I respect that it doesn't always whatever, but that was the problem. Is that I'm just aware that there's people that have kept me safe and people around me safe for a very long time. And I honor them and I respect them every bit as much as I do the people that are the closest to me. The difference is I just can't discuss all of these things as much as that I know. And I don't claim to be some special person that just knows everything, but I know enough about this to know that some people did kind of step forward and volunteer their time the same way that I did. And they were able to do it from a distance and they were able to sort of keep certain things under their hat and not tell me about it. And they let me go through some things. They let me suffer. They left me hanging in good ways because they had no other way of keeping themselves safe. And they also had awareness that I was going to be okay in the end. And that I would be, that nothing would happen to me or anybody close to me. Otherwise, they wouldn't even let it be whatever. And just all I can tell you guys is that I don't want to say whatever, but you must know that a certain degree of prediction modeling can happen within human behavior, which is to say that if you can generate a prediction about how far a signal will see in some software with enough data and information and the right calculations, you can predict human behavior extremely well, especially over large populations. Yeah. Yeah, so these are some good comments here. Sorry, I'm not like paying that close of attention all the time, but um, but yeah, like the reason, like this whole thing we were talking about with this Tule Lake segregation facility where my family, has some origins, guys. I mean, look, those had to be some Nazi genetics that got crossed in there. That's all I know. People can deny it if they want to. But the behaviors are the signs of the behaviors, the associations with the companies like SAIC, all of these things are there. These are all the signs that I can basically associate with modern Nazism. So, what do you want me to tell you? Like to my own brother, I would just say, dude, you're about as close to all of this crap as anybody that I could possibly think of. Doesn't mean you're guilty of it. Doesn't mean you're doing it or did it. But I'm kind of sick of being left hung out to dry while somebody with like the kind of power that my brother has or the kind of connections that he has or that my aunt has that was in the DOJ has, like, and I'm just left to suffer, sometimes getting fried pretty brutally with directed energy weapons, and like there's just nobody doing anything about it, and oftentimes being trolled about it like it's funny. I can't even earn like a basic living sometimes, guys, because of how aggressive these people are. And what they're really doing at the end of the day is human harvesting, organ harvesting, and the exploitation of children. That's what's being hidden. My grandfather was an admitted, confessed child molester. There is no way to wax that in any other way. He was dark, deranged, perverted, and he did those things. He confessed to those things. There's really nobody who questions it. So once you know that there's an ecosystem behind hiding that monster and how close it was to, again, my own family, and that my own family has more surveillance capabilities than God close to them and their job functions and their connections, and that we all know that behind every puppet is the puppet master, behind every marionette is the person pulling the strings. So I'm a lot like a lot of other people. I kept on looking. I'm like, where does this all lead back to? Where is the all-seeing eye that this all leads back to? Where is that wizard behind the curtain? And I think I found it. What to do now? Because once you find the wizard, they're going like, no one's going to do anything. I control the police cars' communication systems. I control the NSA's functions. I control all the information being shared by the FBI. I control all of the back doors of all the NSA computers. I mean, really, that's what SAIC is basically says back to America. What are you going to do about it? It's like they just troll you. They piss on our soldiers. They send them off to war over lies. It gets revealed, guys. You understand the Iraq chemical weapons thing was SAIC. You understand that atomic veterans, victims of nuclear tests who got cancer, denied benefits and stalled and lagged until they just died, because that's how they solve the problem, guys. They go, well, the OD goes, let's have SAIC research it for us. And then SAIC researches it, and they take so freaking long and go back and forth that, well, all those people that would have received medical attention and benefits under the atomic, veterans program, they're dead. I guess the problem is solved, right, SAIC? That's what's insidious. To them, that's like problem solved. But then they'll claim that they have like 24% veterans. Do you guys think they might be fudging that number? And do you think they might fudge that number for other branches of the military? And do you think the military might know about it? And don't you think the military might know that SAIC helped fudge numbers of enrollment and enlistment? And that maybe their way of covering it up now is through a lot of these made up narratives that are going on. Maybe sometimes when you see a TikTok clip of somebody that's like a soldier that's going uber liberal on you and telling you that hey, all you good old boys, I'm going to knock down your door. Maybe that's SCIC and Leidos's crisis actor fulfilling a role that you think is that. And they might actually be in there. But know what they're actually doing when they're in there. And by the way, if you're in the US military, why are you using TikTok apps to warn Americans that you're going to knock down their doors? A Chinese owned app that a lot of people feel like has a tap in through their their government. And okay, guys, let's just to be clear here, I am under no illusions that the CIA does this to every other country globally. Touche, you're absolutely right. And I'm going to even let China know that I don't really even fault you for fighting back. I don't. Just being fair. I'm being real. I'm asking you, though, at some point, what are we going to do to prevent this between one nation to the other so that we can just all be cool with each other? And I think where that begins is the technology thing. I don't want this to be about US versus China, but I think that'll solve the problem. I think that's what'll normalize everything to where you won't be partners with the corrupt elements within the United States. You'll agree to partner with the ones that are trying to reform within. We are the US as a sovereign US. You're China as however you want to govern it, communist or otherwise, and no one interferes with the other one's governance. Because here's what I think. I think Communism effectively, when if it's pure communism, is will more often than not fail on its own because I just don't think it actually works. I think it could work in some scenarios, maybe. I don't know, but I wouldn't want to be in it, and I wouldn't want to be a part of it. And maybe for the people who it does work for, they're all cool with it, and you should let them do it. Me personally, I don't want it imposed upon me, secretly or otherwise. This is the concern that I have relative to the modern FBI and what we're witnessing. Because as far as I can tell, what we have are bloodlines connected to Operation Paperclip Nazis that are now holding gatekeeper positions at the NSA, the FBI, and the CIA that are all too happy to sell us off to China for pennies on the dollar as long as they get to be the ones in charge of everything here. And they'll just make it look like America. We'll still fly old, you know, we'll still fly the good, the American flag and everything like that. It's not like we're going to have a big star up there, but effectively that's what they're doing. They're making it to where the star is on the flag, but you think that you're seeing the stars and stripes. That's the big trick. So here's the thing. Once this has become like known and it can be researched, I think what's gone on is you had certain groups, and I was just given this as things from the sideline, take it or leave it, that they just researched what I said because I just flailed my arms enough and got enough people's attention to where they're like going, sometimes I just pissed people off, by the way. It wasn't always because they liked me and wanted to hear me. Sometimes I just pissed them off in just the right way, not trying to necessarily. And then it was in chasing after me or thinking that they were going to get back at me or something like that, that they started to uncover and peel back layers of the onion and go like, oh my god, man, he's telling the truth. We all just thought he was some person that was blah blah blah. No, man, Jesus, whoa, what is going on here? There's documentation to back up all this. This never happens. It doesn't, you guys. Try to find a case like mine that has as many data sets that lead back to the corruption and everything else like that, the specific people, all of it, that has as many heavy political connections as my family does. You understand I'm like 2 degrees away from the freaking Obama administration with their political connections? I'll tell you how it works. My uncle Ricardo Cruz, appointed to Seattle School District by Washington Governor Gary Locke. That same Uncle Ricardo Cruz is the one that married Catherine Warma. Catherine Warma was the Department of Justice attorney in Seattle who handled specifically computer hacking and intellectual property crime cases. Almost everything is cybercrime nowadays. I mean, there's almost nothing you can do at a federal level that doesn't involve some degree of wire transfer of funds or something like that in an illegal fashion. It's all cybercrime. Who's the gatekeepers? My brother's in Washington State monitoring NSD functions. I had an aunt that long before he took that role, though. Again, they were separate at separate times, but again, why would these people, even if they can't do something, why would they ever say to me that they don't even know where to go except to maybe give me an 800, a bogus 800 number, by the way? To something that when I go and research at where that number leads back to, like the Department of Energy's like accountability, something like that. There's like a DOE accountability department or something. When you go research it, it's just a total joke. It's the same mafia. It's like, honestly, guys, when you want to report corruption or a whistleblower case and you go to one of these websites that's managed by SEIC, Leidos, or one of these mafia minions, you may as well dial 1-800-FU. You're talking to a freaking hand. It's like, talk to the hand, not hearing it. Whatever it is, you're talking to the hand. All right, so I'm going to play a couple clips for you just to kind of help you understand like why I went to the US military and like what I'm speaking to. Like, guys, these aren't people that are lightweights. They'll tell you they are and they'll play it real humble. But do you have an aunt that's been blacklisted and is not allowed in Russia? Cuz I do. And I'm not saying that to make me sound special or something like that. I am telling you that I'm going to show you in this article, those who don't know, my aunt Catherine is in fact blacklisted from Russia involving a cybercrime case relative to a Russian citizen. That's pretty politically connected. That's the same aunt whose husband was appointed to the Seattle School District by Gary Locke. He's the former Washington State governor who then went on to be ambassador to China and the Secretary of Commerce during the Obama administration. When he wasn't serving one role, he served the other. That's a hell of a resume. And does that not put me a couple degrees away from the Obama administration when it comes to political ties, which would lead ultimately to the Clintons and the Podestas, would it not? And ultimately to Joe Biden, who is ruling today. All connected to this family who will go, us? I don't know what he's talking about. Gabe. Can you really continue saying that, family? I mean, you do have like photos of us like sitting on senators' laps in Washington D.C. and right, don't you? Senator Warren Magnuson. Is there not like in the family photo albums, like you can open them up and there's us sitting there with a senator in his office. My brother, I think, actually got that one. I'm not sure the rest of us did, but yeah, that's who we were hobnobbing with as when I was a kid. We were in Washington D.C. mansions, and my dad was serving as a fellow. He's in a fellowship. I don't know what they call them. You serve like a term where you're in a fellowship with a senator, and so that's what happened. He went out to Washington D.C. This guy, Senator Warren Magnuson, and we all lived in Washington D.C. for a while when I was a kid. See, my information isn't average, and nothing that I'm telling you is non-corroborative. I can show people everything. And unless they do something like destroy all the family photo albums, I could show you everything like photos from DC. I even actually have some still. And some of the people that I've met out there that are my audience members, they've actually seen some of these materials. So there's folks that know that I'm a real human being, that when you talk to me face to face, that this is corroborative information. All I really have ever needed, guys, is just the resources to follow through on making that convincing to as many other people as possible that here's the problem, here's why my case is compelling, and here's why it requires intervention from somebody outside of the FBI. When you realize the FBI is ignoring something as serious as what my information leads back to, that's when it gets to be pretty chilling. That they've never volunteered themselves to me to have an official interview says how scared they are of my information and how real I really am. Because the real people they don't want to talk to. They want to usher you out the door and make you believe that that's how our system works, because that's the way they've turned it into. But it's not how our system works, and we do not have to accept it. And I will not accept it, not when children's lives are at stake. Whether they're somebody else's, whether they're ones that have been forgotten, or they're my future children. I'm doing this for all of them. Know that. Especially my future children. I can't leave a system this insidious for them to inherit. That ignores and disregards people. That just lets it happen. I couldn't live with myself that way. I couldn't be proud of myself. I couldn't look at them with any pride or sense of dignity. I wonder how people in my own family look at their offspring sometimes that know. And I guess that's why they keep them from knowing. They never want to have to look at a face like mine that knows the truth. The way that I confronted my parents with what I knew. And the response that I got lacked integrity top down. And kudos to the one person that at least kind of admitted it. You seemed at least to demonstrate enough shame where I think that you at least wanted me to know that I wasn't wrong. And so even if you were a coward about the way you went about everything else like that, I appreciated that you at least gave me that one moment where I could see how guilty you really were. To where I didn't have to question what I was doing excessively. You know how hard it is to like do that? You ever hear that song The Wanderer with like Johnny Cash that he did with U2? I don't want to get into this thing. I don't want to do this. Yeah, I don't want to get all artistic tonight. I gotta stick on topic. There's like a line that says something like, "Where men can't walk or freely talk, and sons turn their fathers in." Do you know what like that like sticks like a what that does to my mind? Like I didn't come to any conclusion. Like I still don't. That's what's so difficult about this. What do you do when you're like you come to these kind of realizations, man? And then the disinformation teams move in quickly to make you question it all over again. They want us to stay in Oz. We don't have to stay there. All right. So here's the list of the clips called information sharing. And so I'm just going to play you guys this one article. Actually, I'm going to do the reporting child trafficking to the FBI hotline one, and then Russia banned for Department of Justice officials. Okay, so those two I'm going to play right now, and then I'll do some Q&A in between, I guess, and some talk about that, and then I'm going to play one more, and then I'll probably close up because I'm just trying to give some like information about why jurisdictionally we're kind of at the place where we are right now and why I got there. So I'll be right back. Hello, everybody. Getting back to the issue about reporting issues involving cold cases, child trafficking, things of that nature. I started thinking this through a little bit about how there's potential that some people who have access to the deeper parts of our telecommunication grid may be creating, I guess, anti-safety zones. I call them safety zones, but it's really what I mean to say is that they created like zones that were safe for people that are actual predators. You know what I'm saying? And I'm concerned about that because if they're doing that, then that shows that the people that are doing this have some accesses that they should not have. And the reason why I'm concerned is because I've been told that it's very difficult to report, things like child trafficking and, human trafficking, things like that. So I thought I would just, check the FBI website and things like that because just I've researched some issues in some of the neighborhoods that I've been looking into lately. And I do think there's some legitimate reasons to be concerned, potential exploits that involve potentially piping private underground fiber optic networks between buildings and creating private networks that hive into like good servers, BlackBerry Enterprise servers, and things like that that don't have access to like not every access via the NSA if somebody were to do this and they had enough money and resources, which it appears that some of the groups that do this do have. So I just want people to be kind of thinking ahead a little bit, especially my brothers and sisters, and tell us to all right, see this part here? This part, pay attention to. I discussed this in a couple other articles, but this is critical to all the technology hacks. What they're doing with these BlackBerry servers, and the good term Yeah, guys, good means good. I get it. I don't think that every time a person says good, it means BlackBerry server, but it's just a way for you to understand that there's codes and ciphers that are used relative to the technology hacks. Good, BES for BES, BlackBerry Enterprise Server, BIS, BlackBerry Internet Server. These are terms they use frequently discussed, like how they transfer files in an encrypted fashion from phone to phone using software emulation and Cobham and like Harris Stingray type air interface hacks that lead into an ISIT, like information system information technology route that utilizes BlackBerry servers for encryption and storage and to pass things back and forth amongst each other. So I just wanted to interrupt it for that to tell you that real quick.
Like not every point
So here's the
would have access
good.
via the NSA if
They
somebody
call
were to
it
do this and they
good
had
for
enough money and
BlackBerry.
resources,
That's
which
just
it
another
appears
term
that
for calling a
some of the
BlackBerry
groups that do
Enterprise
this do
server.
have. So I just want people to be kind of thinking ahead a little bit, especially my brothers and sisters in the telecommunication industry. Those of you who understand fiber optic networks, backhaul, try to think about the different scenarios that an elite, predator would do. If they were really, if they owned a lot of real estate, if they were trying to create private networks, just think it through a little bit, and you'll probably understand what I'm getting at here. That I'm not too far off base. Okay, so please just try to understand where I'm coming with this, and I'll show you here in this video clip. Now, it says here, when you go to the FBI website and it says, okay, you look up human trafficking. It says to go here. You wind up at the bottom of the page and it gives you this 888-3737-888 number, which in numerology is HHH, CG, CG, HHH, CG, cog, cage. I have guys. I keep finding that word in some of the other dead end numbers that I find. So I'm just a little bit concerned that this, I want people to verify authenticity. That's all, just because I'm concerned. That's all. So if that is the number and it just happens to be happenstance, that's fine. But to those who are in the know, just think it through a little bit. Again, I also understand that 888 is a common prefix for free numbers and things like that. So no shenanigans there. Just putting this out there as a thought for those who do understand the way some of the rerouting of numbers go. So when I go to the next link that they send you to, which is it's the National Human Trafficking Hotline, again, it'll take you basically to the same phone number. It brings you to sort of a template where you can file a report online, and then it tells you the whole thing is being run by the Polaris Project. So I don't really want to get too much into like reviewing anything about the Polaris Project. I don't know anything about them. I just looked them up, before I made this. So I'll just provide some links here to their executive leadership so you can look at it really quick. But what I'd really like just to highlight a little bit here is just like what I showed you with this process and what it kind of demonstrates about the possibilities for the potential for people who are significantly more well resourced than you and do understand telecommunication networks, for them to take advantage of the ignorance of our population who just assume that when you call it a number to report something that you actually get routed to the right person. What I'm trying to help people understand here is that that doesn't seem to always happen, and it seems that there are quite a number of systems in place through which to actually prevent people from reporting things. And so I'm not going to say that that's what Polaris is doing, but and I won't even suggest it, except to say that given the important nature of what we're talking about here, human trafficking, child trafficking, when I go down and look at their list of donors, and I see the list of tech companies, I understand Google. There, lots of people have privacy concerns. Not going to get into that. Palantir, again, a lot of people think that they're an overreaching kind of database. A lot of things going on with that. I think there's legitimate concerns to be worried about Palantir's involvement, but I won't get into that either. So I guess what I would get into next is that, if Palantir's involvement is actually helping find people, that's great. I would just say, is it doing that? Is it actually making it better or worse? And I'm only asking that because it just seems like we do have a record number of, missing children, and we do have the ability to collect data, also in record amount of time. I mean, it's lightning fast. Our ability to predict behavior and to research cases and everything is just, we've never had access to more data. And just what I know personally from being within, system performance groups, which kind of do, some types of forensic troubleshooting within networks, which isn't to say that they do like investigations for law enforcement very often, but sometimes that happens. And, I think it's just important to keep these things in mind. Like, what systems do we trust and who do we trust them with? And so when I noticed that, Polaris, down at their list of toners after going through all this, that they wound up at Harvey Weinstein, at the very bottom of the list. I get it, guys. Harvey Weinstein has a troubled history and everything like that, and it's not every donor that's going to donate to these places is going to be a saint. But I think it just highlights a greater issue as to why do some of these people sometimes donate to these organizations. Is it just to put a good sheen on it while their behaviors may not be the best? you know and are they potentially, just, I get it, most of them do it for that reason, it's for PR, but still, we're talking about something that's really more of a vital service. It's something that we should be treating more like, a 911 call. And it seems like the way that the FBI is treating it, if I'm understanding this website correctly, and maybe I'm misinterpreting it, please tell me, because again, I could be misrouted. So that's what I'm really trying to determine here, guys. Is it really this bad, our reporting systems, or is it something else, you know? And it's just strange to me that it routes back to a guy that's, again, connected to Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein has his Black Cube connection. And, since I've had some connections to demonstrating how there's people potentially in the Northwest that could be doing some rerouting of some things, and they might have some connections to some of these same groups that have been protecting Harvey Weinstein. I think the fact that he has such a high donation to the organization that might be doing the collection for, reports involving human trafficking and child trafficking is a little troubling. He's a high-end donor. I think, well, yeah, he's a donor. Let me put it that way. Enough to where they put his name on the website, and that's concerning to me. And I think that's worth discussing in more detail and asking, well, is it my network here, that I'm being told something incorrect, or is this really the way it is? In either case, it's something we got to figure out. So, if I reach out to anybody out there, it's just because parts of this are concerning to me. It's not just this one issue with the FBI child trafficking website. It's the 222 number that at the other case, and there's just some things that I really feel like at this point I would really like to run by some other professionals, if they're out there. So, just wanted to throw that out there for people. And I do appreciate your time. And yeah, hopefully we can, figure out what's going on with these things, because yeah, this seems very strange to me. You know. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Just wanted to talk about some of the things that have been going on in the media lately with Russia. There's been a lot of disinformation kind of running around, and it's kind of made me disgusted with the mainstream media personally. I can't really watch it anymore, and I've kind of abandoned RT America and other news outlets because I've just noticed similar patterns to the way information is spread in the United States, and but more importantly, misinformation. So I wanted to focus a little bit on this story about a gentleman that was from Russia that was convicted in, I guess, credit card theft and credit card number theft and cybercrime. And as a result of this case, the man's name was, let's see here. Sorry about this, folks. His name was Seleznev, and Roman Seleznev.
Oh man, look. Denied. I was denied. The FBI says, Gabe, you can't look at our website tonight. I think it might be a VPN thing, if I had to guess, but I think it's kind of funny. I was just going to interrupt it to show you how bad. Like, if you go to the FBI's website, it's not funny, you guys. It's not. But it's something you're going to have to, like, process if you're used to just accepting information and thinking that it's just like, look, I'm a pretty difficult person to fool, but if over and over again federal agencies will tell you, like, here's a whole list of the 10 most wanted criminals and here's like 50 people that are missing or something like that, and you think to yourself, who would make that up and why would they make it up? Well, that's the thing that I had to learn. Yes, there are people that make it up. There is a reason why they make it up. And it's all catching up to them right now. That's why now I'm telling people, like, yeah, everything's kind of effed, but it being so completely effed, you're going to see just how quickly it snaps back into place. I really believe that. I honestly do. I really believe we have a great future to look forward to. And I didn't mean to say any of this as like some grr, bah, humbug. It's so that people, when all these things have to happen that seem a little bit absurd or like, what the hell's going on? Why is the military doing that? Well, you're going to have to realize the FBI has spun this with their Hollywood actor connections. I mean, you almost can't separate Hollywood filmmakers and producers from the FBI and the nuclear industry anymore. It's also interconnected. Nuclear and Hollywood and FBI are like peas in the pod. They're the sides of points of the triangle. I mean, it's that intertwined, really. Uranium, yeah, Hollywood and the FBI. And then once you peel back the layers of Hollywood and uranium, now you have underground tunnel systems, that's uranium. And then you have underground speakeasies in the tunnel systems, that's Hollywood. That's the secret Shangri-Las. That's all the underground activities that everybody goes like, is that happening for real? Yeah, a lot of it is. Now, what you're getting put out there on YouTube are the actors themselves that are doing those things underground, creating false narratives for you all to get angry and upset about all the things going on underground that are happening, but what they're telling you about aren't happening, but they are. What do I mean by that? They're kind of like confessing to things that are going on, but they're putting out a narrative that is unprovable, sounds really ridiculous, and is a character that they've manufactured to wind up being provably false. And so then when somebody looks into it with a more critical eye, they'll go, that's fake. We know that's fake. All these people make these things up. Well, that's because it's the only ones you get exposed to, number one, and they're designed for you to debunk. Or they want the person who delivers the real information to not look at all legitimate. They want them to seem, like erratic, frazzled, disturbed, mentally ill, whatever. And they'll manufacture them in a very structured way to where they're very abrasive, and that the average person that needs a little bit more normalcy in their lives will reject them out of hat. I mean, that's just that's the truth, guys. And again, I'm not judgmental overall. Yeah, I can be, I guess you could say. But, like I've known people from all walks of life. I've known people that have tattoos from their freaking necks all the way down to their ankles. And, no issues there. I wouldn't get a single tattoo at all. I would never want one. Okay. You couldn't get me to even get like a little bit of like a tiny little dot of one on my skin. I don't want one. But I don't care if somebody else does it. If that's what you want to do, if you want to be a walking billboard for some tattoo parlor, that's okay. I wouldn't do it. But sometimes those people were my friends and have been my friends or are my friends in the past or whatever, and we're cool. And I don't have any issues with that. I mean, to me, these are all whatever. So it's not trying to get deep into whatever. It's just um anyways, guys, I'm getting a little bit off topic here. So let me get back into the core of the material here, and play this thing over again, or not over again, but get back into the video. But yeah, a little bit weird here. FBI says I can't get in. Probably my guess is it's a VPN thing. If I probably disabled the VPN, they'd go, now you can come in. But if you can get on FBI.gov on your own connections or whatever, or feel like doing it ever, you'll just kind of look at like their missing cases, their missing persons cases, or their top most wanted criminals, and you're going to kind of go, especially their top wanted criminals, you're going to look at it and go like, seriously? I mean, they'll have names like, this notorious credit card thief named, Vista McMasters. just, just ridiculous narratives that only some like clumsy artificial intelligence like engine could possibly think up. And then some lazy human goes like, yeah, just put it out there, I don't care, whatever. And then people just start to accept it as reality, and none of it has to be. I mean, are you going to go look deeper into it? Whoever does. Well, yay, Gabe was one of the ones that did. I looked deeper into it, and I discovered a whole bunch of these things are just made up. They just make them up. Now, it's tricky. they're designed for, if you do investigate, that they can put in some degree of human intelligence to make you look foolish. This is where they use opacity layers and can have like three people be one person in many cases. And so they would give like all these different variations of their public persona and always looking radically different from one picture to the other. So that by the time you're introduced to them, if they ever have to, it's going to be hard for you to tell which is the actor and which was the avatar, blah, blah, blah. Guys, I've seen them do this over and over and over again because it's a little bit like if I say that person's fake, they can go, no, they're not. Here they are, right here. See. But if you do a closer inspection, you're going to see how radically different a whole bunch of their public photos look, because it was literally opacity layers of a few different people assembled into one photo. And they do a lot of things from a distance to where you can't see their faces very good. And that way, by the time you actually get face to face, and you go, oh, I guess you're the same person. I mean, who am I? Right? Like you're going to say, who am I to like judge, or who am I to think otherwise? Right? It would seem like, that would be a ridiculous or a bizarre thing to think, but you got to sort of readjust the new paradigm of how things work, because this is happening and there's people that are doing this, and they do get into your lives if you get to this level of information awareness like I'm at, and where many of you are. You may find some of these characters will enter your life in repetition, trying to convince you false narratives are real narratives. And all I would caution people is that make sure that they're at least they have a barometer, set it however yourself is. But what I like about the group I've assembled, even if they're not the largest audience in the world, I think I have a really good quality one. And they're the critical eye is what I love. Like I can actually get people in here that will actually, like, they're both supportive, but they'll actually ask me some questions that are sometimes pointed or make me kind of like think about things a little bit more, or like look at it from a different angle. And so I really appreciate that. I appreciate, the people that are in my life right now that support me daily, and are have been very nice to me and things like that. And you know, I can listen. I mean, I can take good constructive criticism. I really can. And I welcome it. And it's not something that I want people to feel like they can't do here in this chat or in my personal life anywhere. Um, all I ever ask for right now, though, I'm serious, like from everybody, is that those who look out from the sidelines, or who are in my personal life or just in this chat, or just know more about things that might be going on to this bigger thing that's happening between FBI, military, and America. I understand sometimes that I can look a little foolish. I know I look a little silly from time to time. I do something called full metal disclosure. It's a method that I've done training in. Even I've developed it. It's a form of information transfer that keeps as many people safe as possible. It uses a combination of these technologies involving intuitive communication. Yeah, that's in the more esoteric range. The other things is that those technologies that involve more the type of intuitive communication, you have to be pretty calm, and your mind has to be calm, and you have to be in a pretty level mind state typically for that to operate well. It's kind of an alpha frequency operation thing. It's a frequency level thing for it to work on. And if you can get rattled easily and you can get angry easily, you won't receive the messaging as well, and you won't have the path to path thing. It's weird how the human to human thing works very similar to the way doing transmit and receive balancing with repeaters in the wireless industry work. It's a really delicate thing where, if you increase power on one side of your transmit path or too much power on your receive path, if you go in one direction on transmit or receive, one affects the other. And so you're always doing this balancing where you're increasing one power level, decreasing the other, because you're optimizing both, then verifying and testing. And what I do with Full Metal Jacket, not Full Metal Jacket, that's the movie, but I coined it from the film Full Metal Jacket. And because I have a fondness, for the film, number one, and just for the conversations that I had about the film and the things in it. And the film always represented something to me and people that I've been close to, I've been friends to. especially the ones that it served. And that movie just has special significance for me, and it does, I know, for a lot of them. And full metal disclosure is about finding ways that I'm already a person that look, you can't watch my material and not know that I put myself at pretty significant risk. How could you not know that about me? You would have to. And so what I learned to do over time is make sure people are aware of that, so if they enter into my situation, so that that's like a known thing, and that I have certain methodologies, and it's in my material. I discuss it quite frequently, where to end this problem, which I do believe we are really on the cusp of doing soon. I think that I put out so much information now that is now understandable and palatable to a layperson, whereas before it wasn't as readily available. It was like way more challenging for people to understand. And the technical discussions would oftentimes, like the things that I discuss sometimes at length in these channels, would task engineers amongst each other to understand or to explain to each other. They would have to put it up on whiteboards, explain it in great detail, put frequency sets down. Otherwise, the person would be going like, "Hey, what are you talking about? I mean, give me some numbers to work with here. What are you even saying?" And so for me, the challenge was just getting to the place where I had all the resources. I could give you the slides, I could show it to you, and everything else like that, right? So that you would understand it the way that I did. And so that you would know that when I found information showing that I had an aunt that was in the Department of Justice that was close to a case involving cybercrime and in the country, Russia. I mean, think this through a little bit, guys. Why has Russia been so demonized? Remember, we talk about like the puppet masters and the string pullers? Who are the real puppet masters and string pullers? It's almost like these are like vendettas. They go back a long time. They're multi-generational. They just keep going back and forth, these heavy hitting players. And I just had no idea that my Aunt Catherine was one of them. I didn't know that she was that big. Had no clue. Been around some of these people for years, or just know. I mean, I never knew her that well, to be honest with you. And I'm not saying they're good or bad or indifferent. I just didn't really know her. I knew she was my uncle's. She is my uncle's second wife, and I knew and do know his first wife, quite well. I mean, I grew up around her, and knew she's a really nice person. I maintained a good relationship with her, and I just don't understand it, you guys. I've been trying to find out, like, is this like some rope a dope scenario and they put me out there, but I just don't think so. Because I do think that it would have been solved sooner if that were the case. That's all. My heart's open to any number of things being a possibility, though I haven't closed it off completely. And I leave open all kinds of possibilities and options because I don't know. All I know is that whoever's been doing this type of activity close to me is pretty insidious and evil in their behaviors. The ones that have been doing the hacking, the ones that have been doing the IP routes, they're pretty disturbed. And I know based on the codes and ciphers and cryptograms that they use constantly in their activities, that they do pretty constantly around me and to try to disturb me. I mean, they're still like, the fact that they're getting away with it where I'm at currently, being so close to like a military base and all of these intelligence offices, agencies, says to me how bad our problem is in America and where it originates. It's a jurisdictional problem, guys. So like, I don't want to sit around and like, tell vets or military people like, why aren't you doing more? Well, they need the data. So what you have here, ladies and gentlemen, is that data. This is what I'm providing you. It's when you sit down with me and you go over everything that I have in earnest, and you can bring your better interrogators and whoever you want to talk to me. Please talk to me though, because I've already been through too much and I don't need somebody like just grilling me for no reason. But if you need to go there, I'm open to it to a degree because I need you to trust me or at least be open to my information, as bizarre as it is. And just so you know, I've been interviewed by guys that like had some serious military training interrogations before, and I'm not saying that to be like I can do whatever. No, no, I'm telling you, like I've looked them in the eye to know how freaking serious they are. That what that means to them. There's one in particular. If he ever sees this, he'll know who I'm talking about. He interviewed me back in 2004. I was in Oklahoma, and he sat there and looked at me, and I remember he gave me the coldest stare, and he was like, "I like him." But he asked me about like my work ethic and about I told him I worked on a farm and grew up on a farm part of my life and things like that. And there's a point where the other guy that was in the interview looked at him and said like, "God, dude, let up on the looks, man. You're gonna like scare the guy into working here and scare the guy out of working here." I think we want to hire this guy, man. You know, that's the point. Isn't to scare him. We're just trying to make sure that he fits with everybody. So I'm open to it. I just don't know where we begin. And so this is just me like saying that sometimes guys, yeah, I'll poke a little bit out of love to the right people in the right places at the right time because I want to inspire you to ask more questions of me too. See, that's integrity, I believe. I've told anybody that was connected to the Marines that if I'm lying to them, they can line up on me just like Full Metal Jacket with those bars of soaps and beat the shit out of me. Who in the hell in their right mind would volunteer themselves to that and agree to never press charges or anything if that were the case? I'd be like, you guys can just beat the shit out of me. I won't waste your time. So I'm going to continue playing this. I'm not going to keep doing this like all night or anything like that, but this is just to give you a quick, finish up to the story. I'll just start it over so you guys can kind of hear this. It's basically me talking about media manipulation and then why it hits close to home and what I know about relative to my aunt. I'm being very diplomatic in this article, guys, because I was new to the information. Now I just kind of figure like, look, guys, something's up, so stop acting all whatever. But back when I did this, I was a little bit more like, hey, I just kind of want to know what's going on. I was being super diplomatic. So keep that in mind. The timestamp on this article is yeah, it's been over 3 years since I did this one. So I've learned a lot since then to where I don't quite have the same optimistic perspective on everybody. Put it that way.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Just wanted to talk about some of the things that have been going on in the media lately with Russia. There's been a lot of disinformation kind of running around, and it's kind of made me disgusted with the mainstream media personally. I can't really watch it anymore, and I've kind of abandoned RT America and other news outlets because I've just noticed similar patterns to the way information is spread in the United States, and but more importantly, misinformation. So I wanted to focus a little bit on this story about a gentleman that was from Russia that was convicted of, I guess, credit card theft and credit card number theft and cybercrime. And as a result of this case, the man's name was, let's see here. Sorry about this, folks. His name was Seleznev, and Roman Seleznev. And when this happened, the response after the Department of Justice did this was that Russia responded by blacklisting some U.S. Department of Justice officials by the names of Ethan Ray Aronson, Catherine Worma, Norman Barbosa, and Charles Seth Wilkinson. Full disclosure, I do know one of these people in my experience, so I just wanted to be open about that. because really what I'd like to do here is because I do have an affection for Russia, and I do care about our country also. And I do know that it's in the best interests of our country to get along with Russia and to have a harmonious relationship with the rest of the world. So if I see something that may have involved, maybe somebody potentially that I'm close to where I can maybe respond as a mediator, I want to make sure that I do that. So just playing, trying to be fair to Russia here and just trying to help our country understand what I'm trying to do here is a little bit just to play. I'm not going to say, well, I'm just trying to say, let's look at it from their perspective. What would they be thinking if they saw some of the data that I found? Okay. So, in reviewing what was going on here, I found a company called ProAct. And what ProAct does is crisis assault actor training or crisis actor training. So, if you're not familiar with what that is, a crisis actor is basically a person that will be like in emergency situations. They're there to sort of pretend to be one of the victims or whatever, and play along with the ambulances and everything like that, so they can do like a simulation. Okay, and so I kind of noticed that that same last name of the person that I know was attached to some of these companies, and so I started saying, how would Russia perceive what was going on with our mainstream media right now, knowing that there were connections to the Department of Justice, this person's name, and a company that trains actors, to do scenarios and mimic things in public. And so, I just wanted to offer that out there to people on all sides, let them know that if I can be a mediator in this and have a discussion with people on all sides to maybe find out what's going on here a little bit to see if there's some concerns that need to be addressed so that we can have a good relationship again. I think that would be very valuable. I think it would also help smooth over the relationship between the media, our president, because I may not agree with Trump and I don't really necessarily like his policies and things like that, but the one thing I do respect is he's trying to have a good relationship with Russia, and I think that there may be some things going on with the mainstream media that are trying to prevent that from happening. So really all I'm trying to do is just try to get everybody to kind of put down their swords a little bit, because some people are very skilled at disinformation, and some people are very wealthy. Some people have a lot of exploits into certain groups and can manipulate perceptions from afar. And so I just want to make sure that we're being fair to everybody in all these scenarios, and we're addressing these problems appropriately. So, so as I was, researching that, I kind of did kind of track them down to California, and so I just want to be open about that too, folks, because I do know a lot of people that view this material are aware of me and people that I know and that are connected to my family. So I just want to be transparent with folks and make sure that they understand that I'm not trying to conceal anything, but at the same time I'm also trying to respect it. People have to live their lives too. So but since these are all things that are offered as public services and publicly available businesses and everything like that, I'm not advertising here. I'm not trying to promote any of these services. I'm not going to tell you that they're good or bad. I'm just trying to say that if you are Russia and you are viewing all the names attached to this case from the outside, knowing what you know about some of the things that I've discussed up until now, especially involving wordplay, you might be concerned if you are Russia, and you might be concerned rightfully, I think. So this is really just to say that I would like to be a mediator in any discussion, and maybe help bridge the gap informationally between these groups. And if I can do that, I would like to. Okay, before I start talking about the case involving Roman Seleznev, I need to talk about my relationship with Catherine Worma. She's my aunt, and because she's a...
All right. So that's the articles on the family, I guess you could say, and how I got to where I got to relative to the FBI information, and how that links to the information relative to my aunt's, partnership with the FBI via the Department of Justice. And those unfamiliar with like jurisdictional things, like effectively the FBI investigates a case, and then they bring everything to the Department of Justice, who then decides, the choice of, how to prosecute or who or whatever, how to proceed with the case. So if the FBI brings a case to the DOJ and the DOJ doesn't feel like it's strong enough, there you go. I mean, there's really like nothing gets done. And, this is where we get into the topic of gatekeepers. And then when you think about how my Aunt Catherine was in charge of things involving computer hacking and intellectual property, And then, what's gone on, however long since whatever. I don't know, guys. I mean, I'm not sure what's going on in our country or who was where or when or why certain events happen. I just don't really understand, I think, at this point, how such a program like we've uncovered relative to like organ harvesting and human trafficking, all these other things, why there's been so many different groups who brought forth legitimate information, some not so legitimate. But, again, guys, there's enough out there to where you would think that there would be some more legitimate mainstream media coverage of these types of topics, except they're just really, again, there's the unison, uranium, Hollywood, you know, it's always that partnership, Hollywood and uranium and the FBI. And I think the problem is many of us have just accepted that what the FBI is doing is reality when it's more of a Hollywood script that's been presented as reality to us to absorb and accept. And herein lies the problem. You're having to tear apart everybody's paradigm of what they believe to be true, and simultaneously explain to them why those narratives were manufactured. It wasn't just because somebody was lazy and didn't want to do their jobs. It's because they're literally managing the crime at that level. That's the thing I just can't wrap my head around still. Like I still am. You don't want to believe it. Um, yeah, I still don't want to believe these things. See, I'm really not that pessimistic. I'm just not. I actually have great hope for the future. Who owns Hollywood? Who started it? Well, guys, I mean, I've done, I don't know. I mean, for me to tell you, like, do I specifically know who exactly started Hollywood? I mean, it's, look, I mean, we can get into all types of those types of issues, but, it's, to me, that's really challenging. Like, yeah, dude, but how do you define what's what? How do you find who's who? This is our problem, guys. Like, to me, this is where everybody argues over isms and what is and what isn't. And I don't know. I think it's more complex than that, to be honest with you. Yeah. Yeah. It's a challenge, guys. Like, so when we talk about these higher level esoteric things, like even the Jesuits, like like the Catholic Church and the Jesuits and things like that. So I think I've always had a pretty good relationship with people that were seriously Catholic. And so I wouldn't want to challenge that, to be honest with you, because I respect them. And I don't believe that most of the people that I've known, at least that were Catholic, were creeps in any way, just to be straight up with you. But yes, I do understand like the concerns surrounding the church and what the Jesuits represent relative to Catholicism to a lot of people. Like they kind of perceive the Jesuits as kind of like a higher order of, I guess you could say, spies on some level. That do. I think that that's actually kind of, to be straight up with you guys. I think that's, how do I say it? I think that's probably the wrong term. I think what I would say is that they're investigators at a higher esoteric level, but it can take on the form of something that would involve something that would be very nearly indecipherable from what would be considered spycraft at times. Yeah. I mean, to be straight up. Um, I also think there have been people who are historically connected to the Jesuits who left the Jesuits that I thought were pretty decent people, and that when I saw them and heard them, they resonated strongly with me, and I felt good about them. So I don't know. It's difficult for me to say. Yeah, yeah, dude. So again, I just so white boy, I'm not, just for those who aren't looking at the chat. That's the name of the person's chat name here. I always try to clarify that so people don't think I'm going, "Hey, white boy." So yeah, that's his name in the chat. But yeah, I hear what you're saying though, dude. Like, so it's not the people that are in the church, it's the people at the top. So that's why I was trying to explain, like, there have been some people even that were pretty high ranking or at least held some high ranking positions. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Father Malachi. There's a documentary about him called Hostage to the Devil, or Hostage of the Devil, or Hostage to the Devil, I think. Um, that is really, really well done. I thought, maybe I would have a more critical eye of it if I saw it now. I don't know, but I watched that about 4 or 5 years ago. I don't think I've watched it since. I probably need to, but it was a really impressive documentary about a guy that performed exorcisms. And to me, this is where I feel like there's high-ranking cat. This to me, like, I'm glad you brought this up, white boy, because this is to me like the thing, like when people talk about Freemasons or they talk about Jews or they talk about, like, there's all types of groups that I think get kind of lumped in and scapegoated. And I think even within the higher ranks, you have different forms of it that I think people get to a certain level where they kind of go, I know where you got all of your knowledge from, and you all didn't create this. You borrowed it and spun it. And now that I know you borrowed it and spun it, I think I want to splinter off from your officiality and go learn on my own. And so I don't think necessarily that Father Malachi was at that extreme of his perspective, like I just explained to you, but he did have a little bit of that going on relative to the Jesuits, where he just had a different belief system relative to the Jesuits at some point, that he felt like, even though he was rigidly Catholic and felt strongly about Catholicism and being a Christian, he did feel like his split in beliefs relative to the Jesuits. He had I believe, a bit of a crisis of conscience, a little bit, I guess you could say, because he felt so strongly about the way things should be relative to the way they were. Also, he just understood exorcisms, and I think when you're a person that's at his level, the thing he that really impressed me about him is that I think Father Malachi did understand bioenergetics. I think that people who are exorcists that actually accomplish it and can prove that there's people that will say, like, that didn't happen no matter what you show them. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who just make things up that look way more realistic than a person that could capture actual evidence. Meaning to say, there's some people that can fake it better than a person that could capture reality in a way that would impress somebody. Because sometimes, like, the real energy flow, the real bioenergy magic, it doesn't really look that impressive, like, physically. It's something that when you're in the midst of, you absolutely know exists. The synchronicities that occur, especially when you're near, like, heavy crystal concentrations, not to get too esoteric in the conversation, but when you're in areas a lot of quartz, wow, bizarrely synchronistic for me. Water and quartz together, especially. Not or again, it could be a desert environment, but it would have to be an area that has a heavy concentration of water underneath relative to quartz concentrations. And let me tell you something, you can experience some bizarre synchronicities that you wouldn't think could happen within physical reality, but do. And that's when I began opening my mind up a little bit to people like Father Malachi. And this is where I became very conflicted by all the different people that would say, "Oh, Gabe, but it's the Jews, or it's the Catholics, or it's the Zionists, or it's the," again, I've yet to find too many beneficial aspects of what I perceived it to be as Zionism. So, the way that it's been described, I think by most people, like the way they talk about Zionism in that class, I don't know, guys. It's hard for me to know. Those are topics that I only recently tried to gain a better understanding of. So I try just to, like, find elements of it that resonate with me. And all I know is that higher level people that understood what the Jesuits were, but then had a philosophical difference, I have respect for. But I also know that there's still people within the Jesuits that, honestly, like, if you watch Hostage to the Devil, there are still people that are even separate from Malachi that teach the science of exorcisms and train the priests in it within the Jesuit order. and that they even hire people that are not Catholic to train Catholic Jesuit priests. Trippy, isn't it? And I'm telling you, I saw this in the documentary. I'm like, when they actually had a guy that has secular beliefs training them on things involving exorcisms. What does that tell you? There's a science to it that involves energy flow and that involves bioplasma in the human mind that the Catholics do understand. And this is one of the reasons why I'm very conscientious about not offending people across the boards. That's why it's like, yeah, let's have an intelligent discussion about like the Jesuits and things like that. I don't think that you are, by the way. I think that you're approaching it in a very responsible way, white boy. So it's just the reason why I tend to avoid it a little bit, because I think that sometimes people like to get you roped into the whole, like it's the Jews, it's the Masons. And I hear those two things a lot, but I also believe that they're probably the two main scapegoats, and that there's oftentimes quite a few people that are Freemasons and Jewish that understand energy flow. Also, really, honestly, here's what I think it all boils down to, guys. When it really is all said and done, I think it's that there's people that understand bioenergetics. They will form groups and keep secrets because they just know how much damage can be done to the people that do understand energy flow and bioenergetics, because it's pretty simple. And if you coordinate it, well, I don't want to say it's simple, but I think once you get to the level of understanding where you get it, then it becomes just a matter of training and then being around other people to where you learn how to manipulate energy flow and extract energy from people. And they just don't want this to be known because there's people that hold it as a secret, as a for good intentions, because they just don't want anyone knowing it. They learn it and they go like, like, let's put this genie back in the bottle, you know. So it's not like they're being selfish in those cases, but they may just be like going like, you're not ready for this. Again, maybe that's not their role, but that's why they offend so many people in some cases. So there's those types of like Freemasons, I think, that have that function. But I also think there's the ones that add more consistent like infiltration of Nazism, which was a function of the Nazi Party, was to infiltrate Freemasonic lodges, outright take them over, gut them, and completely shut them down in Europe was their goal. But I think that they learned over time the best thing to do is to become the Freemasons. They learned that the best thing isn't necessarily to openly exterminate Jews, it's to quietly exterminate Jews and become them. They're doing it to nearly every class in America. Guys, Nazis are even trying to convince you that they're black. How many examples have we had in recent memory? People just faking it till they make it. Joining the NAACP. And then once they get caught, they start making up all this, like, well, you don't understand. I'm this type of person trapped in this person's body. Guys, that can happen. And to those of you, please, I hope you understand. Like, if you're whatever, if that's the thing you make, I'm not trying to mock you. Honestly, I want you to know that, folks. I'm really not trying to be offensive to anybody from that group. I'm a little bit browbeaten on what I'm supposed to say and do around, a lot of folks, because it's just new to me. Even though I was around Portland and Seattle for a long time, I'm just telling you guys, it's very confusing to a lot of people that are very accommodating to lots of different groups, but they just feel browbeaten with it now. Sorry to bring that topic up. I know I'm going all over the map tonight. Yeah. Yeah, white boy. I don't think we're just white boy. I don't think we're disagreeing at all with what you're saying. I think I do actually vibe on what you're talking about right now. So I think we're cool on it. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. Or I'm not. I don't think you are, but I just mean that I think we're agreeing on a lot of things. I think you're just yeah. I don't think you are. Yeah, just I don't really think you are. It's just one of those things where like I avoid it in general because I just don't ever like, for number one, most of the figureheads that communicate it, that's the problem. They come at it from that they come at it from that perspective. So that by the time a person is just reviewing it critically, like, okay, top down, let's see what's going on with all these different groups. What are their origins? Why do they exist? How did they come into fruition? Why does one not like the other? I mean, it takes a long time studying these things. And I've been doing it for like the last 5 years now because I never paid attention before, and I still barely understand Judaism. And I honestly, and I actually, I'm actually kind of drawn to it. I have this weird magnetically, I don't know, this weird magnetic like desire to understand um, Judaic mysticism and Judaism greater to a greater degree. I just want to understand it. I feel like there's answers in there. I feel like there's information in there. And I just, and again, I don't like to like lose opportunities to learn more about it either. Not, not any sense of selfishness or anything like that. I just like to get along in that sense. So I just try to be open to a lot of different ways of interpreting it, because I was a person that for a long time evaluated Freemasons at the same level as most of the material that I see. It's a secret society. They do bad things all over the world. They're connected to Nazis and Jesuits, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I would say that. And again, if a person makes that observation, this is where it's such a catch-22, because nobody's wrong about saying those things, except in the sense that it's painting too broad of a brush with the way that it's communicated overall, not you or anyone specific. It's just that, how do you say to somebody, all right, not all of these groups are one and the same. And because of the way that Nazism spread in America, I think our problem is that many people perceive what is actually a Nazi wearing the mask of said group. So say Nazis take over an entire Freemasonic lodge. Then they go around doing all these horrible things, calling themselves Freemasons, when they actually hate Freemasons. So that's why they run around being goofy as Freemasons, because they want you to hate it too. It's real simple. They join things specifically to dismantle them and to tear them down and to make them look horrible and become them, so that everybody gives up on it, and then it just sort of folds in and everybody goes, ah, forget Freemasonry. Mission accomplished. They drive it into the ground, they make it look horrible, and then nobody ever gets interested in it. Now, I don't know. Maybe Freemasonry has origins in it that I'm not aware of that is a lot worse, but and that may be philosophically offensive or not in agreement with everybody. All I know is that I learned a lot by studying what little that I did. I believe that by like the schooling that's contained within Freemasonry is extremely valuable, even to a person that's not a Freemason or attempting to study Freemasonry. The parts of it that unlock your mind are pretty miraculous, and they're undeniable once you experience it. That's all I can tell you. I got some of the Freemasonic knowledge without ever requesting it or asking for it. It just sort of flowed into me, and I was like, man, no wonder all these people are into this. It's not just some like old guys club for, whatever, like conspiring together in some hall. Like there's something way, way deeper going on with it. Now, again, maybe it's, you know, whatever, but yeah. So anyways, I've just observed that if I stay friendly to them and leave my heart open, that there's different forms of it and different groups, and some have helped me considerably, then I tend to be, they help me and I help them from a distance. That's the best thing I can tell you. I don't directly operate with them or work with them. It's just that there's a group of them that I think that keep a tab on things and look at things from a distance, and they have higher level connections and can verify things better, and they understand that I would never be a Freemason, nor would I be a good one. Guys, I'm the kind of person that, like, when I tried to go to college, I lasted like a week, and I'm like, oh man, I cannot listen to all these people talk constantly. I mean, look at me, I sit here talking to you guys for like 3 hours at a time. Do you think I could ever just sit there and like listen to everybody else talk? Right? It's not narcissism, guys. I'm just like not good with it. It's not, you know, there's the people that give the speeches and the presentations, and there's the people that would never want to and can't, right? And I guess that I'm just one of those people that can. I just did it too many years to where now it's a natural thing for me to be able to talk to a camera for a couple hours or a few hours. You do it in meetings and presentations, and it just becomes something that you don't really think that much about. You just immediately go into the flow of it. Mine take way too long, so I'm sorry about that. Yeah, yeah. No, I think we have good discussions on these topics in here, guys. Really, I mean, seriously, I think we have good, productive conversations in here about it. So I don't ever want to close off the door to people having, if you want to bring up those topics, that's always really cool. As long as our audience is, understands where we're all coming from, so that they don't think, oh no, it's one of these things again. I want them to understand that when you're in this room, that we're talking about it at a way more deeper, but also I think more we're trying to be a little bit more open, like both to our expressing what our own concerns are in a more productive way without drawing like conclusions or accusations like immediately, but just saying like, hey man, I have this concern, like I want this to be the type of forum. I hope I could have a venue at some point that would be more broadly known or understood, where that would happen more frequently, where I could bring on people from all these different groups and I could just say like, well, let's have a conversation about these types of theories and whatever. What's your perspective? Can we talk about that? Well, and again, it wouldn't be like accusatory. It'd be more like clearing the air. It would be more about like getting down to what the real thing is. And then, hey, if a person is lying in those situations, then they fall on their own sword. But the platform is there just to basically be kind, inquisitive, not Larry King softball, but just simply to say, like, hey, here's all of the challenging things that have been brought up, and we're just going to sit here and, like, and talk about all of them without this, like, this bitter kind of, accusatory type tone. um that's the way we accomplish it, I think, is having forums like that where we really get into these really heavy topics, yeah, where somebody can say like, I don't understand Freemasonry, or what is Judaism, and can we have some people, like maybe one person who's Orthodox, or like the Hasidic groups, or the compared to like some of the groups that are more, they go to more modern synagogues, and are a little bit less traditional with their form of Judaism. And what are the different forms? Like, I would be, as a person who's never studied it, I would be interested in having a conversation with a group of people like that. I would also want to understand the deeper forms of Islam and Islamic mysticism, the same way that I would want to know more about, Judaic mysticism and beliefs, and have a forum where all those things can be discussed in a way that's just about talking about it. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a religious discussion. We could just be talking about perspectives of different groups and why they feel they do from their unique philosophical perspective. You know, I'd really like it. I feel like that's something that we're seriously lacking in this country, and I really wish we could get there, because I feel like this thing that we're talking about right now, this whole thing about Judaism, this Zionism issue, this thing that everybody like immediately goes like, "Oh, I can't talk about that," or "Oh, I'm going to get tagged," or again, it does. It puts up like, why does it raise a red flag? It really shouldn't. I mean, it should be like something that we all just talk about. But again, like everybody has this sort of fear thing that triggers in them, myself included. I'm not. Look, I get a little bit spooked about talking about it. Mostly just because of that exact thing. There is such a rigid form of judgment to when you mishandle it, they can really backfire on you in an aggressive way. And people can come down on you like going, how dare you say it this way or that way? So that's why I kind of go, not exclusively for that. I mean, I genuinely don't want to piss people off from those groups. I mean, I would like to be understand it in a more formally trained way, if anything, honestly. I mean, all of them. I wish there was a place where you could learn about multiple forms of spirituality, because it's actually important, especially if you're trying to do, hell, I got to be honest with you, even if you were in the defense department, you would want somebody to who not only understood cryptography and could do data analysis, but you'd want somebody who understood mysticism from all cultures, because if you don't really get how criminal enterprises work. This is where I think you're all seriously lacking. If you think you're going to catch criminals and not understand occultism, then you're not paying attention. You don't even know the basics about how gangs function with their street tags. That's sad to me. It's sad to me there's so many people in intelligence circles and law enforcement circles that really just don't even get the basics of this. And you have people out there that would just love to teach you, at least, so where you could, like, because, we all just need to have people that train one another, not train one another, but like help out one another a little bit. And I'm seeing actually some of the signs of it. And all I'm really asking for truly is just a little bit of faith, a little bit of the support, so that we can get to this next phase where I do believe things are going to be exponentially better. I'm sorry that these presentations can sometimes be a downer, guys. And I don't tell you those stories that I tell you. Like, I didn't mean to open up here all sad. It was just the reality of some of the things that I have happen around me that can really chip away at my spirit at times. And I don't want to pass that along to you. I want this to actually be something where you know that at the end of this, that we're going to be at a better place in this country, that we have the spirit, we have the brain power. We actually do have it. We possess that in America. And why there's so many groups within America that want to keep us from this knowledge that we all need so desperately, especially the bioenergetics knowledge. It's one of the reasons why I spend so much time talking about that trinity of human energy and getting back to the brainwave and energy cycles, is because everything I'm telling you here, we can restructure our reality as it's currently existing in America through this plasma bending methodology that can all be done organically. As much as you plant seeds and grow, a tree, you grow biofields, and biofields turn into actual things. They just do, you guys. I mean, that's everything vibrates into resonance through shared beliefs and enough people believing, not enough people doubting. This is where the optimism part of all of us needs to really kick in, myself included. It's challenging, I know. It is. I get it. It things kind of suck right now, and if we don't understand that there's a spiritual component to this plasma transfer to change it, that believing that it can change is a huge part of it. To not lose sight of that, it's not stupid optimism. It honestly isn't. It's that, number one, we can't fix what we need to fix unless it's communicated clearly to all the right people who may not understand biofield things and bioenergetics, but do understand tangible data about this crime could be happening at this place, this cyber crime could be occurring via these mechanisms. Again, if you can get down to that level and get people to understand those parts of the physical reality that they're existing in, then you can help them understand that, okay, now you're dealing with physical reality things in an earnest way where that wasn't even being done before, which is to say they'll be actually enforcing the law in a meaningful way, meaning to say that it's not going to be about going around and finding people that are I don't know, the guy that downloaded Metallica's album in his parents' basement. I mean, is that really worth anybody's time? Who cares if Lars Ulrich is pissed off? He used to record records. Suddenly he's the artist and now he's pissed off. Okay. Anyways, side topic. That was years ago, but the Napster days. Um, but I really do think, guys, that we're really on the cusp of changing everything, but it's really getting folks within the right departments. And this is why I make appeals a constant. I make appeals constantly to veterans, because I really believe that you're the ones that have the military connections that are required to really get this to the next level that it needs to be at. And this is one of the reasons why, before I ever went to the FBI, I went to the military first, because there was just something within my, it was just weird. Like, I had this thing that was just sort of like directing me, telling me like, you should really just go down to that military office and talk to somebody. And so, as far as I can tell, I think that they made like a point to like surveillance it and record it. And then the information got sort of disseminated about why I was concerned about what I was about to do. And this provided a pathway for the military to begin monitoring my success or lack thereof with the FBI and reporting the information that I learned. And so they've just seen over and over again, like, as far as I can tell, if they did and are doing what I think they're doing, the parties that have hinted that they are, then if the FBI is simply failing in every regard to even do the basics of their duties. And so this should provide the pathway, this case and what I've been discussing, hopefully, should be able to provide a pathway through which, if we can't get something moving within the United States jurisdictionally to overcome what the FBI is just simply covering up or not addressing, then we'll have a means to do it internationally. Because I don't know what else to do beyond that. And that's just the kind of guy I am. Yeah. Yeah, just guys, like, I mean, I'm cool, like, though, just like, what we're talking about here and everything like that, it's good. I think it's a good conversation. Um, and I don't think I'm misunderstanding anything or anything else like that. I think that it's the dialogue going back and forth about these things, is a good one. Yeah. Well, the thing about this, guys, is like, I understand that things are a little bit dark right now, so I don't mean to. I'm not trying to fill you with false optimism. I'm trying to tell you that it's actually possible to change this, and that part of that does involve belief and faith, and that's the core principles of Christianity. I mean, the prayer and the process of the Trinity, existing in a physical plane, existing in a spiritual plane. We're understanding there's a holy Father. There's something that you pray up to, someone, right? A Trinity of human energy. It's within the Holy Trinity. It's within the biblical, Catholicism, really, especially as into the Trinity. And I think they do get the energy concept. I think they do understand the power of prayer. They do understand the power of beliefs. And they do understand what happens when you can get a whole bunch of people to believe the same thing in structures that have steeples and re-radiate the energy and echo inside. Look at all of the amazing Catholic structures, and I promise you, those are resonant energy chambers that transmit outbound and extremely in ways that it multiply human energy and human plasma relative to the biofield. Going into a Catholic church and absorbing all the material and symbols transmits them outbound into the biofield, and it makes Catholicism more powerful. It does. So that's something that everybody can do, to understand. Learn what they do, learn what they did, and replicate it, because the dark side does. So if you're in this for the light, if you're in this for to fight the good fight, if you're in this to win for all the right reasons, then you have to remember that you can do the same thing with a shared set of beliefs and doing these things in the right structures or in the right areas at the right times by, common beliefs. That's it. I mean, there's nothing freaky going on in churches. That's just people that are in a meditative state. They're in an alpha state very frequently. They're in a church. They're calm. They're focused on the Christian symbols, the image of Christ. They're focused on the image of, the crucifix. But maybe that's the thing that's wrong with Catholicism. Maybe it's the focus on the crucifixion of Christ and not on the Holy Trinity as a life concept. Maybe it's the excessive focus on Jesus as a death and not as, this constant living thing. And the overemphasis on his sacrifice. I don't know, or in his self-sacrifice. Those are good points to bring up philosophically in a non-offensive way. I think we can have that conversation. Yeah. So, I mean, again, to me, like that Trinity concept of prayer and what it means to like radiating energy outbound, especially within those structures themselves, it is an energy concept. So what I'll try to do, and just in my own life, is just I'm trying to focus on better and not get drugged down into the muck excessively. But I'm still I'm still in a physical reality that has yet to bend completely to the ways that I would seek for it to bend. And I think one of the things that's going to make that possible is for people to have faith and belief that it is possible, that it is happening, that the methods that I'm using and others are using are effective and they are working and they will prove out and they will demonstrate evidence of what I'm saying. I believe in them. I believe in all those people out there that are taking chances and taking risks that I believe are doing that. I respect you and I don't want to put you at any risk, but I don't want to put anybody at risk around me either. See how that is? So I make appeals for that, to do your best, to know that I've done about as much as I can be expected to do, and that at some point I'm going to be in a place where you're going to have your part with me resolved, because I won't be able to take part. I have to draw that line in the sand at some point. But see, now I understand a little bit more about that thing that I think a lot of you experience. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I think I get it. It's that sense that you're feeling that there's people out there that are in it and you're not. And you want to do something. I just wish we didn't live in a country right now that punished you for it. I wish we were better than this. I'm not saying that at any boohoo. It's just like it sucks. I say it because I wish I was the kind of person that could be running around rewarding people for doing the right thing. I wish I had the resources to do it. Whatever this evil game of Pokemon Go is they have going on out there, I wish I could make it work for the good of everyone, for good things, for positive things, where people would be incentivized to go around doing good things, rewarded for doing good things, rewarded for being decent, rewarded for being kind, rewarded for being generous, rewarded for being patient, rewarded for being for providing abundance and being decent and being warm and grateful, things that we all should be and are. And I believe in you. I believe in those closest to me. And we're going to change this together, everybody. So we just got to get it done. I'm going to go tonight, guys. This is about as much as I have for you, but I appreciate you joining. And I'll do another one soon. And thank you for listening tonight and for the great chat. It was very good comments tonight. So, all right. Have a good night. Thank you.